Hey, everyone out there in Geek Vibes Nation. This is your pal, Dane Alves, with another enticing episode of Wrestling Geeks Alliance, a show in which me and my co-host, Christopher Brother Ray Patton, we break down wrestling. And we got a doozy of a show for you today, because we're going to go over the Wednesday Night Wars this week. We're going to go over Smackdown and the interesting stuff they decided to do on that show. And we're going to talk about a conversation piece comparing two wrestlers that we might try in the future, kind of like the Hall of Fame or the Observing Wrestlers Hall of Fame, where we're trying new things for you guys to see if it works and see if it's fun. So today's conversation piece, and maybe I'll figure out like a title for this concept, is Eddie Guerrero and Macho Man Randy Savage. So I'm really looking forward to conversing with my co-host, and since I just brought him up, Chris, how you doing, sir?
I am doing very, very well. I apologize if you hear any extracurricular activity in the background. My yard guy's here, so surprise me. But outside of that, man, I'm having an energy drink, getting ready to talk about some wrestling. I'm very looking forward to the conversations about Eddie Guerrero and Macho Man Randy Savage. Yeah, the cream of the crop. It's going to be fun. So how are you, man? How was your Friday night? Because we talked on Thursday.
I drank. Not gonna lie, had a couple whiskey shots, a couple beers, watched SmackDown. I noticed it quite a few times, so that's good. And had a good Friday. And you sound fine, man.
That's how you know it's good, when you say I noticed it. That's like how most people feel about the rest of an Alter Bridge album that's not the Edge theme song. Yeah, it was like, I noticed it. It was decent.
It wasn't bad. Well, that's good for on SmackDown if they can keep my attention because of Wednesday. And we always go over the ratings. It kind of sucks how that is because for wrestling fans, I don't think it's, a contest. I think that if you compare Raw and SmackDown to Dynamite and NXT, unless you're just one of those fans that loves to be only one fan of one than the other, but most of the time I think that, casual wrestling fans like us, not casual, but the diehards, Chris, like the Wednesday shows over the Monday and the Friday shows, not based off the ratings or whatever.
Yeah, no, I mean I completely agree with you. It's man. All right, let's just dive into this, Dane. Let's just fucking dive right into this.
All right. Well, before we go over those shows, I do want to bring up two news items that have happened since we last talked, really quickly. One of them being that, spoiler warning if you don't want to hear this is the return of a wrestler on Monday, but you've been warned. If not, just go a couple minutes forward. That Randy Savage is on his way back. Or not Randy Savage. My God. I guess we know what I'm thinking of.
Yeah. The cream of the crop's finally returning to drop the elbow on Triple H for taking his girlfriend.
Oh, my God. You're not supposed to talk about that. But AJ Styles will be returning Monday. Without the club, obviously, and after the events. Are you excited about this?
Too soon.
Yeah.
I think it's too soon. And I wanted them to bring him back with some kind of cool thing, honestly, especially because he kind of shedded the club. And I think it's the time to bring AJ back as a cool guy and maybe have him feud against Aleister or someone that, not mystical versus mystical, but I think there's a time to rebuild AJ, and there's not enough breath in between us seeing him get buried by the Undertaker and the glove sticking up from the ground. Like, oh no. Maybe they could have waited one pay-per-view for, at least in my opinion. But yes, I'm always happy to see AJ Styles. I do think it's too soon though.
Do you think he'll have some type of different gimmick? And what do you think is going to be his reasoning of how he got out of that situation?
I mean, being that they didn't give it enough time to really breathe or settle in for fans, hopefully his reasons, I'm from Gainesville, Georgia, goddammit, and just climbed right out of there. Somebody with some damn sense, roll elephants or whatever. No, I mean, I don't know. It's to me, it's just too soon, and they're probably just going to bring him back as AJ Styles because they need a guy, and he's in Atlanta, so it's not that far of a travel or whatever. But I would have probably given him off until a big pay-per-view for a while, in my opinion, because yes, he lost to The Undertaker, but he got a great rub from The Undertaker. You get that iconic, like, AJ Styles glove sticking from the ground. I feel like there's a lot you could do, and bringing him back so soon, especially with not really... I mean, he's coming back to Raw, right? So, like, what are they going to have him do that's important enough for him to come back right now?
I don't know. And I'm just hoping that there is not a complete change in the gimmick, but a direction that goes kind of darker. We have AJ that's now forcibly by himself. So whatever they decide to do, it's going to be interesting. But yeah, I agree with you. I think it's way too soon as of right now.
And I will say, I love the idea of a darker AJ and a darker gimmick. It's just there's not enough room. There's not enough separation from what technically happened to AJ of being dead, right? To just coming right back one pay-per-view later. Well, not even one pay-per-view. You said next Monday was the tease, right? So before Money in the Bank?
Yep.
Or are they just going to toss him in there and have him win Money in the Bank or something?
I think Monday, actually, now that you mention it, they are having a gauntlet match, I believe, on Monday to find out the last participant. So that would be very, of them to kind of forget what happened, throw AJ in, he wins it.
Yeah, and I mean, we kind of talked about this with Kevin Owens. There's still like a way for some of these people to get into a big match on Money in the Bank. It's just whether they want to be there or not. AJ actually kind of makes more sense, but I just didn't think they were going to bring him back so soon. Because I just feel like Kevin's not going to travel out of Canada unless he absolutely has to.
Well, it's funny that you say that because our next news item is actually about someone that's not willing to travel right now. And reportedly, Sami Zayn has turned away from, future tapings with WWE with fear of the coronavirus, which they said as a company that if any of the employees or wrestlers felt that way, they wouldn't get any, in trouble at all. But the Observer is saying that Sami gave them this warning right before the show last week on Smackdown. So I don't know when's the next time we're going to see Zayn on TV. He is the IC champion. I could see them taking that title and making it some type of tournament, to give content, if you will. But just to say, regardless about what they said about this is Sami Zayn, the same person for good reasons. Don't get me wrong. Who doesn't want to go over to Saudi Arabia? It just makes it seem with a lot of the stuff and the antics he's done online, he's not so much of a team player. And I still think that regardless of what they say about with the whole COVID thing, it's going to be in the back of someone's mind named Vincent Kennedy McMahon. So how do you feel about this, Chris?
I mean, as far as not being a team player, give the guy something to do that's not part of a crew that no one gives a shit about, honestly. And he's basically a manager. He's Bobby the Brain Heenan. Like, how are you going to get excited about going to work when you're just kind of there? And you're asked to do some irrelevant travel from Canada, which technically should be, I think the borders are actually closed, so some sort of illegal activity to get to an essential workplace in Tampa or whatever. I mean, like, look, Sami's a great wrestler, and I'm assuming the same thing is kind of going on with Kevin Owens right now. If anything, we're going to get the Jim Cornette was like, I told you motherfuckers that they don't want to travel anywhere, or whatever the hell he's going to do, because that's going to be what comes out of this. But to some extent, like, does Sammy really want to be in WWE at this point? That's the real question. Like, when's the real last big wrestling match he was in?
I mean, this last one with Daniel over the IC belt, that wasn't really an IC championship match that we were hoping, because you had Daniel Bryan and Sami Zayn, and I was completely let down from that, and I don't like that they've kind of forced him into the Bobby Heenan role. I missed his old matches. It's kind of a struggle.
And I think this, I mean, I don't think we talked about this on the last podcast, but I'm a little curious. Did you happen to hear Daniel Bryan's comments on his relationship right now with Brie and kind of how that stuff is going?
No. Well, I saw a commercial for the Total Divas, but, you know, that's filmed months ago, but I don't know anything currently.
So, I mean, they basically talked about how they've both kind of evolved from their relationship, which happens in any relationship, right? But with him going back to wrestling and her being really involved with, what is it, Birdie B, I think is the name of her company, and Birdie, he was specifically talking about when he comes home, when he's able to come home, it's like a distance thing. Like, they don't have any time alone. It seemed, and she kind of agreed with what he was saying. So that's something to keep interested in if you're a Total Bellas? Is that the name of the show? Total Bellas. If you're a Total Bellas fan, it's kind of weird to hear, because it's like everything was fine and then you started wrestling again and she's not wrestling. And they also talked about Nikki specifically wanting to come back to wrestling as a manager, because she was in the same interview. And her doctor was like, yeah, but you're not going to, like, go back as a manager. Like, you're going to go back as a manager. You're going to take a bump. And he's like, no, you're just done.
Yeah.
Like, don't. Like, don't.
I don't know. I don't blame the doctor saying that, because that's exactly what would happen. And she's got too fucked up of a neck to really continue. And do I think that Nikki could be a good valet, especially a heel valet? Yeah, I do, actually. I think that she's got that aspect of the business. And I never was someone that was actually – I always thought that Nikki was a pretty good wrestler. Brie was fine, you know, but I thought that Nikki actually evolved through her time. But, yeah, she's going to want to jump right back on the saddle. And that's kind of sad to hear about Brie and Daniel. But unfortunately, with relationships, even if you have marriage, even if you have children involved, sometimes the relationship evolves. And this is a wrestler, and I'm sure that there's a comment where she says to him that she feels like he cares more about wrestling sometimes than family. And that's a big thing that comes up. And Daniel's been on Go. He hasn't been on a very limited schedule like originally said if he started. Do you remember that, Chris? He was supposed to have a limited schedule, like a Randy Orton-like schedule was the comparison. But Daniel Bryan's been wrestling nonstop.
Yeah.
And he doesn't let up either.
Yeah, and I mean, I will respect both of them. This aspect is they said that both change and they just have to work through it and try to grow stronger in that interview, which I appreciate. Like, that's not like, oh, well, we're doing this now, so fuck each other kind of thing. So, like, it's I mean, if you're a Total Bellas fan, like I said, this is an interesting thing to come up. The Nikki thing is just kind of it's sadder, because I think Paige gets way more appreciation for wrestling than Nikki does, but Nikki seems to be the one that wants to come back to wrestling so much. If you really look at it,
well, it looks like I've heard Paige is trying to figure out any loophole to go around too. I think that's the bug itself, biting both ladies, and they don't have the realization that I understand. You know, there's stem cell research now that you can do for certain things. There's certain things, obviously, that Daniel Bryan did to help his brain and everything. But, I mean, you know, we know that Tommaso Ciampa, he's got a fucking limited clock. We know Edge does too, even if he was able to come back from this. Your neck, your spine especially, and your brain are three things you're not going to be able to get away from within wrestling. So, you know, and with her, it's like, what, she's had like 2 fusion surgeries on her neck. It's just not going to happen. Every time she comes back, she gets injured, much like Paige, when everyone thought that she was back, and a very minor thing on a house show from Sasha her arm went numb and she couldn't feel anything, and that was it.
Yeah,
Sad.
it's very sad for both of those ladies in general. It just, I mean, there's something to be said about Nikki's passion for wanting to wrestle and her fans. And
she gets a lot of shit.
She gets a lot of shit, and I don't necessarily think that she's the best wrestler of all time. But she does seem to legitimately care about being in that spotlight with the wrestling fans and being a part of that, whether it's like her, her merch or whatever. It's almost like kind of like a John Cena thing, which is kind of funny to say, but
it's true.
It is very, like, she does seem to legitimately care. Whereas, Paige, I think she cares about being in wrestling, but I don't, like...
Do you think she just gave up on it? It's now... She's been so beaten down with not being able to come back, and after a while, it's like, well, fuck this, What am I going to do?
Yeah, and also you had... I mean, there's so much other Paige stuff with Alberto Del Rio, and then the trip to Impact, and some other stuff that had nothing to do with WWE. And this isn't. I
hope she's in a good headspace. I really do with her because of that.
Yeah, me too. And I'm not even trying to get into like the leak shit. That sucks. Like, there's nothing you can do about it. But there was like a time where she was rotating out of WWE and was Alberto's manager and kind of floating around AAA and Impact, and as we know, none of that stuff went very well. And then made her way back, and then had like you said, one or two matches, and is kind of bad. But with Paige, in comparison to like Nikki, they basically have the same amount of wear on their bump card, because Paige has been wrestling since she was 13 or some shit. Some ridiculous, like it's easy to look at Paige and be like, oh man, she didn't wrestle that long. It's like, well, no, she did, just not at the WWE level of wrestling. Man. But I will say, Nikki, she, as much as I'm not a huge fan of Nikki Bella, or just the Bellas in general, because it just reminds me of time of female wrestling that I wasn't a huge fan of. They did try to overcome that. They got better in the ring, and I think Nikki specifically created a character that some people relate to or whatever, and they're great on those on Total Divas and Total Bellas, and that's part of it, right? But every time she actually talks about wrestling on anything, like any interview, she comes off very sincere. And when you have people like Ronda Rousey talking about it's like fake fights for fun or whatever, it makes you really like Nikki Bella a lot more than you probably should.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I don't even know what the hell we originally were talking about. Oh, we started branching off of Daniel Bryan from Sami Zayn. But we got our Bella mix into the news for sure. Actually, a lot of that stuff is good to, well, not good to hear in certain aspects, but some information. And going back to Sammy, I'm just wondering, I hate saying this, but, the reputation of Sammy being kind of a pain in the ass, and, either way, if you're given the option, obviously with him, it's his religion of why he doesn't want to go to Saudi Arabia, and I think it's completely understandable. But
it's not that he doesn't want to go. They told him he couldn't go.
Was that it, or I thought he was one of the guys that opt out immediately?
Originally they told him he couldn't go because he wears the religious symbol on his trunks and stuff, and his kind of moon.
Well, so that would kind of piss me off as a wrestler. I understand why you wouldn't want me to do that, but I'm not going to fucking take off the religious symbol on my trunks.
Yeah, and then that was part of Kevin Owens not going. He's like, oh, Sammy's not welcome. Well, fuck them. Basically, he's like, well.
Well, what I'm gathering at, even though he just won the IC championship with a lot of help from people to take it from Braun and then have a match with Daniel and beat him, and you could say that's a push. He's definitely been a manager with two guys that everyone sees potential in, I guess, except for Vince, including himself actually, with his faction. But still, he's been advancing and doing good stuff. But at the same level, we all know and think that Sammy could do much more. Do you think that him opting out of certain things doesn't help, at least with his reputation in the back? Granted, if it's warranted or not, Chris. especially to Vince. That's what it comes down to. You know how Vince is.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing though. Like he's huge with people like Daniel Bryan, right? And all of this, like the negative Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn stuff, comes from Jim Cornette's time at Ring of Honor. So I don't know, man. I feel like those guys put themselves through walls multiple times in WWE, and specifically Sami Zayn. He just kind of just goes out and does whatever they ask him to do, and he's never upset about it. He just kind of does it. But I mean, with this situation, like, I mean, I get why he wouldn't necessarily want to travel, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, you're the champ. But you know, if that's the case, as a company, you just book you just suspend him. You just strip the title of him. You set up a tournament. You that's how you build stars.
I think that's what they're going to do, Chris. And it seems now they shifted Shinsuke and Cesaro to be backing King Corbin, which I think fucking just sucks. Because I definitely at least like them with Sammy, because Sammy had so much more credibility as far as being a heel manager. But to be just now stuck with Corbin, I think that's kind of bullshit.
Imagine being Shinsuke Nakamura, one of the best wrestlers in the past 30 years, and they're like, all right, you're going to be the underling of Baron Corbin.
I'm sure he's happy with his surfing and stuff, but I think the same thing. And not only that, Cesaro with Ring of Honor, man.
It's like him and fucking Claudio could wrestle fucking circles around Baron Corbin. But, you know, it is what it is. I mean, at least with Sammy there, with all of those guys together, you're like, oh, they're all great workers. That's great. And Sammy's a pretty good promo. So you're like, okay, I kind of get it. I mean, I don't get why you did that with Sami Zayn and had him be a manager or whatever, but, like, I get it. But also I don't get what they've done with Cesaro for a bazillion years. At some point, just put him and Sheamus back together and just have them be a fucking tag team, because they don't know what they're doing with either of them. And, like, Nakamura can just be a guy. And maybe even do the Undertaker thing with Nakamura, where he only shows up on special occasions, maybe Russell's house shows or whatever, make him very special. He needs
an old theme back, man. I'm telling you. That new one doesn't help. Because everyone still does the music, you know, instead of what the fuck's going on. They just do what the original thing is. I mean, he still has that with the audience. I hate it.
Yeah, I mean, I think both themes are good. It's just the heel turn wasn't. They didn't fully commit to it, so it's.
Shouldn't have done.
Yeah, it didn't really matter. But I mean, like, you know, if he came back in a big moment, if he utilized correctly, I feel like that's what Nakamura kind of is at this stage in his career, is someone that could come back and have a really big moment for you. Right? Yep. Like a really big match and have a really good match. I don't necessarily know he's the house show gonna wrestle for the IC title every week on SmackDown kind of guy at this point in his career. And that's nothing against Nakamura. I just don't feel like that. I mean, especially, like I said, and we've talked about this multiple times on this podcast. I mean, outside of like one match with AJ Styles and the match with Sami Zayn, like no one's ever brought out Nakamura, or either that or they don't let Nakamura be Nakamura.
Yeah. Tone him down, man.
So
remember when they changed his name from the King of Strong Style to the Artist? And we were like, what? No, that's, god damn it, fucking main roster bullshit.
Yeah, and then they just had everyone else try to do his moves, basically.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird. He's fun to watch in the ring, even with his spots and stuff like that. And if you watch his New Japan wrestling, I mean, he was so vicious with the matches with a lot of people that everyone likes that's in WWE right now, with AJ Styles and a bunch of different people. And I think that, and I'm not saying this, it's just WWE. I think that he, as himself, he's kind of getting sucked back into the opposite direction, but kind of established himself as not just being a quote-unquote Japanese wrestling talent, because he's kind of more over when it comes to his character, that he's just kind of, he separates himself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense, but to the same extent, the character's got to win every once in a while.
Yeah, I know.
You know what I mean? You can't be like Jeff Hardy if you never get a win, or Darby Allin, or etc. You get what I'm saying? You have to eventually get a fucking win. You can't just get fucked over constantly, and people care about you. Because now what people care about is the original theme song, which he doesn't come out to, like you said. So it doesn't. I mean, like, to the normal observer who probably didn't watch any of Nakamura's stuff from New Japan and just saw him in NXT, was like, oh, this guy's cool and the crowd's really behind him. That's awesome. Like that niche crowd. And then they got behind him. He went to the main roster and just got kind of shit on. And like, even like I said, even if he's not going to turn it up to 11, I'm not expecting him to have like 30-minute bangers with AJ Styles or whatever in WWE. That's just not a thing that I expect.
One thing I wonder, though, and I mean, he did get a title. He did win the Royal Rumble afterwards. He did go against AJ at WrestleMania. But I always wondered, even if, and I think that John Cena, he completely was cool about it. He realized that he wasn't expecting the spot that Nakamura does, where it looks like he's doing a backdrop, but then he brings the body overwards and dropped him on his neck. But from Vince's standpoint, do you think that was something where it was like, it definitely kind of pissed him off a bit?
I really don't, because historically Vince just doesn't know how to book Japanese wrestlers, and that's when you look at someone like Muda and you're like, you could have brought him in versus Taker, and then you're kind of glad they never brought him in versus Taker.
Because he would have gotten decimated. Yep, I agree.
Or they would have just buried him. And I mean, when he was in NXT, dude, Nakamura was money. I mean, he was, like I said, outside of the Sami Zayn match, it wasn't like he was blowing the doors off anything, but in comparison to how he was booked and how he's utilized, made way more sense. And to some extent, I think Nakamura maybe should be utilized as a special talent, someone that comes in and murders someone. At this point, it doesn't matter. I mean, as long as Nakamura is happy with where he's at, it's not my part to judge. I mean, the guy gave us a lot as wrestling fans. Like, there's a fuck ton of good Nakamura to watch out there. It's just very sad because I felt like when he came out of NXT, that theme song hit for the first time, right? You're like, holy shit. And the crowd just went nuts, and then they have done every which way to fuck this guy. Same way as Asuka to some extent, and Kairi Sane. They
just don't get it.
They really don't. I mean, I think they don't understand that the white meat American babyface is not always what people want to see. Which makes absolutely no sense when somebody's biggest...
we like layers sometimes. What I was going to say, though, kind of wrapping it up, this kind of goes back to Nakamura right now. Just get rid of Cesaro and fucking Baron Corbin and let him and Daniel Bryan have the long program that both of them have been pitching and wanting to do for a very fucking long time and get some badass stiff matches. Or, I know he's on Monday Night Raw, but I think that if Shinsuke showed up on Raw and attacked Aleister Black, I think that they could have a great program, both being, kickers and stuff like that. So there's people that you can put him against to have a high-profile, thing, but right now he's just a lackey, and he's kind of been a lackey for a while. And after a while, you're Dolph Ziggler, and you're always kind of a lackey.
I mean, he's already in the Dolph Ziggler category.
Yeah, and Cesaro, all those guys.
I mean, unfortunately. I mean, but you know what? If they're making money and they're happy and they're in the middle of the card, it is what it is. I just know that all of those wrestlers definitely are way better than what's represented in WWE TV.
Well, if they do a tournament for an IC championship match, get the good wrestlers. I mean, obviously they're probably going to throw Corbin in there and whatnot, but I think it would be a fun thing to throw on because I don't really necessarily get bored of tournaments. So it brings out great wrestling and there's a payoff. As long as you present it a good way and don't do some botched finishes, I'm down for what is considered one of the more prestigious belts in WWE to kind of give it some of those wrestlers that they have on SmackDown, like Daniel Bryan, like Cesaro, and let them have some awesome matches. And it's opposite from what they're doing on NXT because it's not round robin. So I don't know. When's the last time they did King of the Ring? Has it been a year?
Oh my God. Baron,
Just call.
yes, kinda. Baron Corbin's still king, right? King Corbin or whatever.
Yeah, do that, man. Well, I guess that with not only do you win the king concept, but you actually win something legitimate with the IC belt. I don't know,
I
something
mean,
like that.
if you were booking it as in people want to see good matches, you could set it up opposite sides, break the faction up of Claudio and Nakamura and Sammy, because Sammy can't wrestle. Whatever, they strip the title of him. You put Nakamura and Claudio on opposite sides, or Cesaro, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they meet in the final, and one of them wins, and then Sami Zayn's like, I never lost the title. What are you guys talking about? And then you have a built-in feud with good matches.
And then you can have people like Daniel Bryan involved in it, Drew Gulak, Chad Gable. I think is still a part of SmackDown if they wanted to use him. There's lots of guys that can throw it into it and make it a fun IC-based championship. So yeah, it's interesting. But whatever the fuck, if Sammy, to round everything off and finish my statement, if Sammy doesn't want to come in due to this shit, then fucking I have no problem. And he's a very sensible guy. He thinks a lot. I've seen him in interviews and stuff like that. So if this is how he feels, it's how he feels. And if WWE is going to say that anyone can go home, anyone can go home. Do I think that he should have done it the day of, basically? Probably not. Especially when he's a champion. Maybe come in, get the belt off him real quickly. But that didn't happen, and we'll have to go from here. I don't know when we'll see him back. I want to see Kevin Owens.
Are you saying that Canadians are a little finicky, much like a la Bret Hart, as far as when they're going to drop the title and where they're going to drop the title?
You just can't beat me in Canada. I'm Montreal. So I have a problem with that. All right, well, let's move on to. Do you want to do AEW first or NXT? Both of them were fun. It's up to you.
I honestly don't care. They both were great shows, so whatever you want to do, buddy.
All right, we're gonna do AEW first. All right, so this is not AEW. AEW Dynamite results. That's what it's supposed to be. What the fuck? This is an article for NXT. What is going on? Oh, no. I'm an idiot. All right, thank you, Uprocks. You guys do have a great format on your website, and I love your breakdowns. I use them all the time. So sorry for being an idiot just now. So we started off the thing with an awesome match, Chris. I know a lot of people did not like the ending, per se, but I really was a big fan of Cody and Darby Allin's efforts to have another just banger of a match and show that I think these guys have a lot of chemistry. I think Cody sees a lot in Darby Allin. I love his aggression. I love Jericho's commentary on him. He said something else. He said something. And he goes, "It's not so much about the face paint like other comparisons with Darby, but some of the stuff that I see Darby do leading into moves and the amount of aggression he puts into it reminds me of what Keiji Muto, the great Muto, would do." And I completely agree. You see Finn Balor borrow that a lot too, where they put that extra just aggression in right before giving like something as small as like a what's it when you go for the leg or the knee from behind that Ric Flair always did. Oh god damn it!
Like a shoulder block?
Well, yeah, shoulder block,
chop block kind of thing.
Chop block. Thank you. But the way that Darby does it is he just just attacks it like a motherfucker. So he makes up for his size so much by his presence. And I thought this was a great match. I like the ending, how Cody was, tried to go for Darby's finisher. It was blocked. Darby jumped up, did it himself, and then was slid in just ever so slightly for a 3 count. That Darby thought, I guess, he was pinning him. I know a lot of people had a problem with that ending, but I mean, what I said to you, this was brought up by Brian Alvarez, and he was talking about the similarities of how they're breaking this down with the variety of matches leading up to what seems like could be Cody eventually becoming a heel and Darby overcoming him for a future storyline, maybe with the title involved, maybe the TNT title, for instance, and actually beating him. And someone, within the comment section on YouTube brought up the fact that very similar booking to what happened with Sting and Flair, where, you go from a draw, you go from a little bit of shenanigans on the win for the second match, you go for a straight win, and eventually this kind of leads up to Darby getting a win, possibly over Cody. But I like that Cody is turning on this aggression. He's not giving a shit if his wife gets annihilated in the match, like he's Macho Man Randy Savage. And it's like a new level. It's a new level of aggression that I'm seeing. Remember, Cody has been awesome as the babyface, but as a promoter, he's trying to get all these babyfaces to stand out by themselves. He can't be that only person. And let's face it, as much as I love him as this, I think he's great. He's a fucking great heel too, especially what he showed on the independents within NWA, Ring of Honor, and New Japan, and just being that foil within, the Bullet Club, and kind of wanted to try to take over being the leader and everything that happened. So I could see that being the kind of the end goal, and it seems like Cody likes working with Darby and vice versa. So I like this match. I know a lot of people, like I said, didn't really like the ending, but these guys beat the living hell out of each other. And Darby Allin shows that based off his size, he still comes off ferocious and like he's trying to destroy you basically. And it's appealing, I would say. But I love Cody and I love Darby. How'd you like this match?
I like the match a lot for multiple reasons. Specifically, if you're going to have Darby lose, having him hit all of Cody's finishers and basically out wrestle him to the point where Cody gets cocky and tries to hit Darby's coffin drop and gets the knees right to set up what would eventually be the finish of the match. I thought everything building up to this was great in a lot of ways. My problem with the finish is not that Cody won or won by a roll-up. It's just it looked like shit. Like,
it looks very tired.
It just looked very bad. Outside of that, if he were one up on, if it was a better looking roll up, I probably wouldn't care, honestly. So it was like, as far as the finish goes, it makes sense. Cody's the guy right now, and you're trying to build Darby. And like I said, Darby put the figure 4 on Cody. That's been Cody's move the past 2 weeks. They built in some things to the storyline where Darby was out wrestling Cody, and Cody's supposed to be the collegiate athlete, which Jericho talked about on commentary. I thought they did a really good job of building up this match. If you think about all of those different things,
so good.
If you think about all of those different little things logically that they kind of put in there, they did a really good job on commentary and building up the match and who these people were and how Darby is just giving it his absolute all to do anything he could win. He hit the crossroads. He put him in the figure 4. He tried to hit the coffin drop. In my opinion, this was the best case scenario because they don't know who the top babyface is right now. Right now it's Cody. And I think that they thought the answer was actually Jon Moxley, who I still just don't see as a babyface. As great as he is, it's very Terry Funk where it's some of the crowd is going to like him, and then some of the crowd's going to be like, eh. So you just always kind of come off better as a heel, I guess.
The weird thing is, and this is where our opinions kind of differ, not me and yours, but ours to JR. Because Jim Ross on the podcast, and if you guys haven't got a chance to listen to the podcast they do after Dynamite, Taz does one with JR and also Excalibur, and just the banter between all three of them. They're all like old lady, like it's kind of like male Golden Girls, if you will. They're just jabbing each other the whole entire fucking time. So it's real entertaining, but they also have a lot of informative stuff. Jim Ross is claiming this is going to be Moxley's year, especially when everything starts running. And he gave the Austin comparison again. And I agree with you that it's more Terry Funk and that he is not – it's not that he's not necessarily a top star, but I don't think that he is to that level. And what Jericho or Cody or what they're building Darby and a lot of other people, what they're actually, becoming the top, the cream of the crop,
Yeah, and I think to some extent it's that he doesn't have a really good heel to go against. outside of Jericho. Like, they killed that right off the bat, so now he's kind of feuding with the Inner Circle, but everyone is feuding with the Inner Circle, so, like, this kind of... Yeah, they're basically the NWO. That's a good point. But you get what I'm saying, like, John Moxley went in and kicked everybody's ass. He kicked Kenny Omega's ass. He kicked the Inner Circle's ass. He won the title. He's demolished pretty much everyone. Until you can build someone that's like an actual threat to him, he doesn't have anyone to go against. That makes it very hard to be the type of baby face that he is going for, which I thought he had a really good run against the Inner Circle. But like I said, everyone is against the Inner Circle. It's almost like you should feel bad for the Inner Circle at this point. As dumb as it sounds, because like everyone hates them. Like what they're fighting, like, okay, so let's just talk about feuds. So they're going against the best friends, right? Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy, they don't like Cody. They don't like John Moxley. They don't like Dustin Rhodes. They don't like the Young Bucks. It's like the majority of the roster hates the Inner Circle, which is good for a heel group, but at the same time, you got to build someone for fucking... And maybe the answer is Warhawk.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Maybe it's going to end up being, I don't know if it's title versus title, but like...
Murder Hawk. Sorry, I fucked that up. Murder Hawk.
But yeah, if Lance Archer... all of a sudden, there's a couple people, and they're building him slowly. Lance Archer wants to prove that he's the better champion, once he wins the TNT championship, and I really think that he is going to win. And then he go after destroying Cody, like Jake the Snake said. He moves on for John Moxley, and that's the storyline. Not who takes both titles, but like who's the better champion. And that's Lance Archer making a statement. Or you position Brody Lee into coming after Moxley, wanting that title, and using his cult to beat the living shit out of him and put the numbers in his odds. And you have two guys that have worked together with, I was about to say Luke Harper, but Brody Lee and John Moxley. There are people that they can position against him. They just have to do it, basically. And not Shawn Spears.
Yeah, I just don't see John Moxley as a babyface. Didn't come off as a babyface. And I love Dean Ambrose, and I love John Moxley.
Just make him. I'm not saying I know people hate the anti-hero, but just make him that guy that doesn't really show that he's a babyface or a heel. It's like he'll fuck up whoever, and I guess that is a bit Austin-esque, but it's also like Sandman. I know he draws from many other people outside of Austin. They can kind of have that guy that's like borderline, he'll fuck up whoever to get to the top.
Which is what they're going for, but it definitely comes off very much more like Terry Funk. Whereas, like, when John Moxley turns that shit up to 11 and really goes full heel, he's a fucking heel. Versus kind of where he's at right now. Same thing with Terry. I mean, when Terry turns that shit up to 11 as a heel, it's the best. But, like, when he was a babyface...
Terry's the best person to mold, and they did it great in Japan. But I think that we've talked about, they're definitely throwing elements when he talks to the fans, like a DDP, like someone that's happy about his fan response, stuff like that. I don't think he necessarily needs that. And you've been saying he doesn't need it at all. And it kind of go away from trying to be the quote-unquote people's champion and, be more of a lone wolf, and not really – yeah, if the audience likes – it's literally like Austin. The audience likes him, great, but he could care less about them, and he's going to be cussing a storm out when he's fucking headed to the ring to fuck someone up. I will say this. Do you think Moxley's on the same level in the company as Kenny Omega? Which maybe
I would say right now he's fucking way above Kenny Omega, since Kenny Omega's wrestling in fucking baby oil matches and not doing dick all.
Love you, Chris.
Hey, look, I love Kenny Omega. He had some bangers with Okada, but then also a lot of other people had bangers with Okada. Show me something different. Kenny Omega should have been your superstar from day one. WWE tried to pay this guy out the fucking, like, a mass amount of money, him and the Young Bucks, to get them to come in. They started this company, and then you have fucking Kenny Omega doing, like, what was it, hentai slide or some shit in the middle of the ring?
I erased it.
It's You know what? I get that he wants to do a different style of wrestling. I get it. Kenny, I love you. So if you ever hear this, don't think that I don't like you as a wrestler. And I appreciate your ability to kick ass on Street Fighter V. But, like, I think that people expected a lot more of Kenny Omega as their top guy.
I think they expected a lot more than him being the quote-unquote big bout machine to being the wrestler's wrestler. You know, kind of like what in WCW, it seemed like Dean Malenko, Chris Benoit, and Eddie Guerrero all, you know, try to be basically on that type of level. And that seems more of his, like from interviews about winning the championship. And it seems like he just wants to have great matches. And that's more of what he's worried about right now within his career. But I don't get it when he turns off the intensity and that style of putting on great matches and then can put the stupid comedic shit that's pretty unnecessary. Some of it's funny, but some of it's baby oil with his best friend that he basically got a job there, Michael Nakazawa.
So, I mean, I could even let that go if Kenny Omega would have came in as the number one babyface, right? If they had gave him some kind of character, but they didn't. They put him in a feud against Dean Ambrose. He lost. And then they put him in a tag team with Adam Page, which Adam Page came out as the bigger star.
Yeah.
I mean, you get what I'm saying? Like, at some point, Kenny Omega is Kenny Omega just what Kenny Omega is?
Well, Kenny Omega, when you watch The Elite and some of those stuff, he comes out pretty fucking funny and as a fun character that's a little bit out there. I just think if I were him, I would study Jericho circa 99 in WCW. To try to get some personality a bit and not being like I've criticized him as being like the enemy villain. Ooh, like you know, like he's Seto Kaba from fucking Yu-Gi-Oh or some shit. I can't believe I pulled that on my ass.
I mean, I think there's something to be said about that, though, and people kind of were endeared to what Kenny Omega was coming in. The fact that the problem is that we don't get that Kenny Omega. And they've given us kind of basically zero outside of the go home promos where you would say goodbye and good night or whatever the fucking what did you say, Zoink Zink or whatever after that shooting? Wasn't that a thing?
Yeah. He did it the night at Georgia. It was kind of cool to see. But
I mean, it's cool, but like he was supposed to be the guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like Cody was not necessarily. I don't think maybe Cody in Cody's mind or everyone else's mind, Cody was supposed to be guy. But when they were like, we're starting a company, this is going to be our new company. We have Kenny Omega. I thought Kenny Omega was going to be their fucking guy, like their Ric Flair. This is our bout machine. He's going to go in there. He's going to have great matches with everybody. He's going to be the fucking champion. Whatever. Jericho's going to come in. He's going to wrestle Jericho. That's what I thought was going to happen. And I do respect the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega and Cody Rhodes for taking a little bit of a backseat, trying to put over talent. The difference is, like, the Young Bucks and Cody have looked very good, and Kenny Omega has looked very fucking average.
Yep. I don't think that group's going to be around much longer. I can just tell that even with Adam Page, that's going to implode on itself to me.
And that's the craziest part is, like, we were down on Adam Page. I was definitely down on Adam Page. I was like, I don't know what the fuck they're doing with him. But you know what? They gave him a little bit of momentum, and he got that shit over. And, like, right now, if you had to ask me who's, like, the most over in the company, like, Kenny Omega would be, like, in number 7 on that list. Because, I mean, like, is he more over than Orange Cassidy right now?
No, man, he's not. I hate saying that.
Is he talking more over than Jungle Boy? Is he more over than Darby Allin? Is he more over than John Moxley? Is he more over than Chris Jericho? You see what I'm saying? Like, he was supposed to be the guy. At some point, Vince is probably looking. He's like, I'm glad I didn't. I wish it would have been a completely different thing, obviously, but he's probably like right now he's looking at Kenny like glad and shell out that money for Kenny.
But it's kind of like the Shinsuke thing, you know, when I know that we heard. It's like every time I hear him in interviews and they're asked like, why aren't you in the title picture? Blah 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 blah. He's happy doing what he's doing. He's happy having matches and trying to help younger talents. And he looks more in the future of him becoming a coach. You know, one person that we forget that he very much idolizes outside of Japan wrestlers and like people like Sean and Brett and whatnot Jerry Lynn, who wanted to just put on great fucking matches and then eventually just become someone to help out the next generation. So maybe he doesn't hold himself in those regards, but a year ago, he was the Sting, if you will, of the one guy that everyone wanted that wasn't in WWE, and that's it's crazy.
I mean, I'll give him that, but when you talk about being the guy that just wants to put on good matches, what's the good matches he's put on?
That's a good point, too. I mean, he's had, besides the ones with Pac, I haven't really thought that much of him.
Outside of Neville just being fucking incredible and very underrated on that goddamn roster, and him and Omega had great matches. Outside of that, we're talking about hentai slides and and that fucking weird ass match with Moxley, which was not very good even for like a hardcore match. I mean, like I said, if Kenny Omega is listening to this, I love you, Kenny Omega. I think you're one of the best wrestlers in the entire world. I just want Kenny Omega back. Can I get Kenny Omega back?
Can I get the cleaner? Can I get that version of him?
I mean, I don't even need the cleaner. I just want good Kenny Omega, not like mid-card. He's like wrestling like Jerry Lynn is a perfect example of what you're talking about, because Jerry Lynn could be like in the main event with AJ Styles and has done it, right? But he's always just Jerry Lynn, and that's how Kenny Omega is coming off in AEW, whereas in New Japan he was a huge fucking star. He came over here, they started a company, he was a huge star when the company started, and now he's just like a guy on the show.
And don't get me wrong, there is no way you can't say an accomplishment of having been the current mega championship in the biggest Mexican, wrestling organization with AAA, and then especially being the world champion and the light world champion. Yeah, was he the IC as well too in fucking New Japan? Those are huge accomplishments. But Jerry Lynn also won the NWA championship. He won the TNA championship. He won the WWE light heavyweight championship when they tried to do that at one point. He's got some accomplishments under his belt, just like Kenny, but he just never went that next step, and I hope Kenny doesn't go in that direction. He could have been one of the biggest. Like, honestly, I started to think that if he went through NXT and developed a character and was put in that system, he would have had great matches, and I think that he could have done really suitable on main, or just put him to the main, but I don't. He obviously needs help because he's not much of a character. He's not. He's all over the place.
Well, see, I don't even know if he needs help. I think he's just literally taking a back seat and trying to help other guys get over, which I'm fine with, but I thought that he was the number one with a bullet for this company. He had the most momentum. He was the NJPW champion.
Yep.
Which is not something that gets given out to gaijins that often. And he worked his ass off to get it, and then kind of left, right? And we're like, okay, we're going to get AEW. We're going to get badass Kenny Omega. And what we kind of got was like him doing workout montages with Nakazawa. Like, that's the Kenny Omega we got. I mean, we kind of got a little bit of crazy Kenny Omega tease of the cleaner with Moxley, but he lost. And then since then, he's just been doing tag matches and has been overshadowed by Adam Page. And Adam Page is fucking incredible. He's really nailing what they've asked him to do. And is great, as we talked about. I was very low on him the first few weeks, but
me too.
He fucking proved me wrong, so that's good. Kenny Omega has kind of made me disappointed as opposed to proving me wrong.
Yeah, and we'll have to see what happens in the future, but I agree with you. Let's start off this whole thing and talk about Cody and Darby Allin. Yeah, so like I said, Darby ended up losing, and Cody will advance to the finals in the TNT Championship tournament. I think a lot of people thought there was going to be a possibility for Allin to win, for him and Lance Archer to have, one hell of a Goliath style match, but that didn't happen. But now this kind of, even though you think that this is paved out, there is that possibility that Dustin could win, and what they presented with the last match definitely made you think that, and then we would have gotten the brothers. Obviously, that didn't happen, but still a really good match, like I said, back and forth, and just showing off the skills of both guys. I just think that they're two of the pillars of this company, obviously with Cody. I think that Cody, in a lot of ways, I've said this a bunch, is, and I mean, he might go completely heel, but like how Ric Flair was in WCW, where everyone loved him, and there was no way that him and Arn Anderson could be heels anymore because they were so well respected. I feel like he has a lot of that type of credibility, and I hope he completely squashes it and ends up becoming a pretty good heel eventually. I just think he's so good back and forth. But any other last comments about this match, Chris?
No, like I said, I thought the match was very good. I thought the finish looked a little shitty, but I got what they were going for, so I didn't, pay too much. Like, I'm not going to – the finish itself, like Cody winning, I don't have a problem with. I just thought it looked kind of bad, but the rest of the match was really, really good. I like Brandy, like you said, almost like a Miss Elizabeth, kind of just being there. And I think there's some interesting things you could do with that. And she is just such a great babyface manager. So much better than whatever they were doing with her before. I'm not trying to take anything away from Brandy Rhodes and whatever they're doing with Awesome Kong, but it's so much better as her being a sympathetic babyface manager who's really there for her man, especially like the strapping, for instance, when he got like the shit kicked out of him by MJF just slapping him with that belt, and she's there crying. It's just, she's great at that role. Do that role.
And you know what's great about it, going back to it, with Macho Man, if you will, you needed Miss Elizabeth and you needed Sensational Sherry. And we've already seen that she can be a Miss Elizabeth style character, but if Cody goes heel, she's really good at being a fucking heel manager too, and raking people's eyes and shit like that if she has to, and presenting herself more. So she's versatile, I would say, as being a female valet for her husband.
I would love the switch with this Penelope Ford and Cody Rhodes though.
That's an interesting concept. they gotta work that in.
Because Penelope Ford is also great. But
those ladies are both just absolutely gorgeous.
They're phenomenal at what they do too. I just the Brandy thing just wasn't working for me with the I can't even remember what the name of the faction was.
No, the Death Collective or whatever the fuck it was called.
Yeah, it was just bad. But I mean, like, whatever. New company, some bad shit happened. They got better. It's fine. At least they moved forward and didn't drive it into the ground unlike Lana and Bobby Lashley. Could be fucking worse, right? But yeah, no, I like the match a lot. I thought it was really good. Cody, I do think right now is their Ric Flair, like you said. And I like I said, going into it, I thought that was going to be Kenny Omega. I thought he was going to be their Ric Flair. Yeah,
I did too.
I was completely fucking wrong. Not that Kenny Omega's not, like I said, Kenny Omega's fucking great. He's a great wrestler. Watch that Okada match. That first fucking all of the Okada and Kenny Omega matches fucking phenomenal. The Tanahashi match is great. Yeah. Anything he did with Suzuki, like, he's a fucking workhorse when he really turns it on. Do
you think he should go a little crazier? Like, kind of embrace that style that he does on Being the Elite, and sometimes, just get a little bit more wacky? Because it maybe would add a little bit of layers to his character itself and provide for him to have a new intense version, an already intense version of himself within the ring.
What I hope they're not doing is giving us, like, the Daniel Bryan of Kenny Omega, where they're just going to have him cruise at a certain level and then have a big run.
Well, they could.
Which kind of seems like, because, I mean, eventually it's Kenny Omega, right? So he's going to get, you would assume he's eventually going to get to the top, right? Maybe I'm fucking wrong.
He's got to get that belt. I think that they're going to try, very much like TNA, man, and WWE also, or WWF, I should say, when it first started, to have their second belt mean almost as much as their main belt. Like the X Division was towards the TNA World Heavyweight belt, and also, like the Intercontinental title was to the World Heavyweight title in WWF, or even, I guess, the IWGP. I don't know really which one is the secondary title between the Intercontinental and the Junior, but, that same type of gravitas, where if you win one, it's still damn prestigious. but obviously the heavyweight is the biggest one, or the world title, I should say.
Yeah, I would say probably the junior title and the heavyweight title are, to me, the most prestigious of the two, just because they do a really good job at separating their weight classes, and when someone's able to win both, it's a huge fucking deal.
Yeah.
But yeah, I will say this, like, if Cody wins this belt, it makes a lot of sense in this tournament, which is what we were getting into before I derailed us. I could see Cody winning this tournament by hook or crook, just because either if he loses, you expect the feud is going to happen with Murder Hawk, I'm guessing, right?
Yep.
Or if he wins and holds the belt for a while and loses, then you can build something off that to get him back to the title picture.
Hey, how about he wins and then the person he loses to is MJF? That could put a little spike in the ass.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about a guy a little bit later that really impressed me for the second time. I think this is like the second or third time I've seen him wrestle, and I thought he was fucking phenomenal in this match, even though it was a squash match.
Let's get to that, actually. Before that happened, there was another Scorpio Sky video package focusing on him joining SCU. Really good stuff, man. And is the writing on the wall, like, are we realizing, like, hey, Scorpio's with, SCU, but obviously we're looking at him within this company as being a pillar outside of it, because let's say Tony Schiavone said it on commentary, Jim Ross, Taz, and Excalibur all said it at the after show. I love SCU. I think they're great, but could Frankie and Chris jump down to just two guys and Scorpio Sky start his singles run anytime soon, or do you think they'll keep him with this? Because it just seems kind of strange they put these packages every week, talking about his career as a wrestler. What do you think?
To some extent, I want to see him break away completely, but I also don't mind that Kazarian and Christopher Daniels are there. If they're just a tag team and they're like, no, man, go out and do you, that's actually kind of a fun thing you don't see that often, where they're like supportive of their friend. The baby faces are supportive of the other baby face. I'm not completely against that either. But yeah, I mean, he is the standout. He's younger. Kazarian and fucking Christopher Daniels are back when we're watching these TNA asylums on Pluto TV or whatever. They were there in 2003.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't have anything left to prove, right? But I mean, as much as I love Christopher Daniels and Kazarian used to, still is fucking incredible. But like going back and watching some of the old shit, it's actually, for his size, it's nuts what he was able to do in the ring, in the X division specifically. But and still to this day, he's a freak. They're all.
And he used to look like Billy Ray Cyrus.
He kind of did. Now that you pointed that out. Damn it! Now I'm never gonna unsee it. No, I mean, I think Scorpio Sky is the future, but you can do the future without throwing out the past to the wayside. Like you can make Kazarian and Christopher Daniels the old tag team that are still friends with Scorpio Sky and be encouraging. I don't necessarily want to see them turn against him or him turn against them. I mean, that's just so old hat to some extent with SCU, or like, if you go that route, it would actually just be nice to see like, no, we're still friends. He just wants to do single wrestling and we're still a tag team.
I agree. But I like the package and I like them continuing, and I really like Scorpio Sky. I think that he's going to be a breakout star, like we've said.
As far as the package goes, I thought that was incredible, and I think that Scorpio has gotten better on the mic. Yeah. And all that shit was good. Sorry, I got on a little tangent there.
No, you're fine. And I was just going to say, there's certain, especially with these trios, there seems to be one guy that kind of just seems like they're going to be a bigger deal. Like, even with the best friends, Orange Cassidy. I understand Orange Cassidy is over his shit, but I think that Trent Beretta, I could see him down the line being a future AEW champion. Same thing with Scorpio Sky, and he's, of course, got two of the best of their era with him. But it's not like that, like so much like with Jungle Express. where we know that I think that both, Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus could have big careers outside themselves. I love you, Marco Stunt, but you're basically the Mikey Whipwreck of AEW. So just have some fun and have some good matches, and
eventually you'll win the title.
Eventually you'll win. Maybe that will happen. I actually asked Taz that on Twitter. I was able to get back to him, and he said he liked that comparison. So hopefully he brings it up on his next little thing. After show, I should say. But all right, so you were talking about it. We had a package with MJF giving us an update to go into the Wardlow match. And MJF appeared from home saying that his hangnail was healed and that actually now his finger seems to be stronger than ever. But while preparing to come back to AEW Dynamite, he nicked his chin while shaving. And he had a neck brace on, just selling it, crying, and said that he will, work hard to get back to where he needs to. And, really, the joke is MJF is in fucking the danger zone right now, so he can't do shit. So that's the main reason they're not bringing him over here. Even though AEW now, for all the live recordings going forward, they're going to be testing everyone, which is really smart. I think WWE is now doing the same thing for live events, which obviously makes a lot of sense. So MJF, hopefully we can get him back soon. I like these little things, but it's not the same as having MJF back cutting promos, talking shit, or in the audience, betting with Sean Spears and beating him. Just all that funny antics. We need him back. But definitely like the Wardlow Musa match. Just Wardlow beat the shit out of him. I've never seen. He basically does the go to sleep, but he puts the person on the top rope and then forces them into his knee. He definitely fucked up this guy's nose. And he also did his new version of the F10, where he just completely goes from an airplane spin and just lets the guy do whatever. He's a monster. I've said, you could do a lot with him. You could do a Goldberg style run later on in his future. He's got that intimidation. He reminds me of Wrath when he was having his undefeated thing in Nitro. He looks like a fucking guy that you would not want to mess with. And I like it. I like him a lot. How'd you like this match, and how'd you like MJF giving us an update about his injury?
So is Wardlow undefeated? Because didn't he lose to Cody?
He only lost to Cody.
Okay,
he only lost to Cody, which sucks.
Yeah. I mean, but also once again, another reason I love Wardlow is Cody kind of botched that moonsault and Wardlow caught his ass perfect, and I think I gushed over that. Man. Dude, he is a freak athlete, and I want to see this guy do very well because I think the inevitable split of him and MJF could be great if done properly. I don't know how the guy is on the mic, but just MJF is so good as a heel that breakup is very Shawn Michaels Diesel, where you can build someone out of it eventually. Because he is essentially
and not so much Vincent and Ted DiBiase.
Yeah, definitely not that, because he's way better than Vincent. Man, I feel bad because even AEW bags on Vincent, but they love him. They love him.
He's in the bubbly bunch.
He's in the bubbly bunch. I've met Vincent. He's a really nice guy, honestly. So I'm not gonna crap on him too hard. Definitely not on the level of Ted DiBiase as far as good wrestling goes, but fun to say the least. I thought this match was great. Musa. The only thing I would say is they put Musa against him, and Musa's actually pretty big. Height-wise, for a squash match. I don't know if you noticed that. That was the only thing, is Musa's also kind of a big guy. There was one great part in the match where Jericho said that he didn't want to see Wardlow hurt this man anymore, which I thought was incredible. He basically pulled the JR, was somebody stop the damn match, but in a Jericho way. So it was great. I think they did a good job putting over Wardlow, talking about how much of a freak he was. I like that when Wardlow gets really pissed off, he pulls the kind of does the Taker thing where you drop the singlet down. You're like, oh man, overalls for days, and then when stuff gets real, you gotta drop the straps. Thought that's pretty good. I like Wardlow. I hope he does really, really well, because out of like Jake Hagar and some of the other big guys they have, I think there's a built-in storyline just because MJF and Wardlow, and I think that he's super fucking athletic. Hopefully, I say this about WWE all the time, and they so prove me wrong. I feel like it's hard to fuck this guy up as long as they continue to book him the way they're booking him.
You would think that would be the case, and that's what we hopefully will get. But who knows? We definitely have a lot of big guys, and if we ever get Jeff Cobb like fully, and Brian Cage after his injury, if all those rumors are true, you're gonna have some big motherfuckers that could really have some awesome matches. Like think about Wardlow and the Murder Hawk, man.
So with Brian Cage specifically, what is going on with him? Because maybe you know a little bit more than me.
He unfortunately tore his bicep completely off training to get ready, and he never confirmed that he was going to AEW, but there was so much stuff out there that he kept on denying, but obviously you deny anyways. But they were trying to pick him up.
Yeah, we had heard it was pretty much confirmed from what I remember, and then
he fucked himself up, and then the I don't think the coronavirus and everything that's happened has helped things out, but he's out. I think that they said that he would be out of action for like 4 to 6 months, I believe, for a torn bicep, but I could be completely wrong. I feel like we've done this on the show.
Yeah,
before.
No, we've talked about it. It's been a while though. That's why I was like, is that still going on? I guess.
I would love him to fucking come on next week, man. That's someone that's not WWE that I think could do a really good job, building himself like he has. Because like Brian Cage, he wants to be like a super buff version of fucking Benoit, but he also has kind of like that Warrior or even Goldberg factor where he's unstoppable, but he doesn't limit himself by just doing stuff like that. He fucking jumps to the outside of the ring because he's been trained by Lucha Libre, and he's just a fun, explosive wrestler that, even though he doesn't sound the greatest on mic, he just has that intimidation factor like a Benoit when he's talking, where it's like, he's going to fuck us up. Although I think he lost to Tessa Blanchard before he left.
Yeah, probably. Do you think he's like the best wrestler out of the Impact Zone in the past 2 or 3 years? Because I kind of say that he might be top tier.
I would definitely agree with that. If we're including Pentagon being a part of it for when he was, and Austin Aries for when he was, but consistently being there, he was there for like a good 2-year period. Yeah, I would put him over Eddie Edwards, Moose, a lot of their stables. Sami Callihan, as far as, well, Sami's a package that you would want to get involved in something like AEW for a completely different reason, just because he's such a hateable heel. But Brian Cage, I think, would definitely have to be at the tippy top to me.
I mean, Sami Callihan, if they ever wanted to work that out, he would be the perfect like Moxley guy.
Oh, well, him and they have a great history. They're best friends. They came up together. So to see them fucking decimate each other and Sami try to kill Jon Moxley, that would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and they had matches in CZW, so there's a lot of shit you could probably. I think they had matches in CZW from what I remember. So there's a lot of shit you could build off of there.
All right, so I just found, and this is from March, injury updates on Brian Cage. I know that Rich Swann's also out, but where does it say? It felt much worse than it looked from what Van Dam said about it. No. Why can't you just give me the exact?
Yeah, see, I just remember he got injured at that pay-per-view and then came back, and then
he tore his bicep almost completely off during it.
Yeah, and then we haven't heard anything about him, and I'm assuming he's got to be close to being healthy, but obviously, shit.
It says May or June he has potential if he can heal it, but it seems like that would be like a John Cena heel time. But then again, Brian Cage he looks like he's pretty fucking healthy. So
yeah, I was like, yeah, the one guy that could probably do the John Cena heel time would be Brian Cage. The guy's fucking jacked. He's definitely in good shape.
yeah, I would love. There's some guys, certain ones that have been cut from WWE. Brian Cage. There's a couple people that if they get, I'm very excited to be a part of the company. Luther will have to stay on AEW Dark though, and let these other guys go on. I haven't even seen Luther in fucking years.
I saw him on the Manitoba Melee that we're about to talk about.
Oh, yeah, let's talk about that Manitoba Melee. So, last week, the Bubbly Bunch, this is the thing. They are the NWO, but, like, the newer, like, the new age version, if you will, that uses TikTok and shit. But they're bad guys. They're all sludge balls that are, ruthless and whatever. But they joke around and they're cool, and it's kind of hard to like dislike them. And with the new Bubbly Bunch, they decided, Chris Jericho's mad that Sammy Guevara apparently won the Flim Flam Dance Challenge, and that he had a new challenge called the Manitoba Melee, in which everyone took punches at the camera, and it was a different person. So I didn't know where they were going. I thought they were just going to do it to each other, and then it was going to get more intense, and maybe Sammy and Chris would like really like go back and forth. No, this went all over the fucking place. And having people like Vicky Guerrero was the ending, Kevin Smith, Gabriel Iglesias. They had one of the guys from Tiger King on it. They had Duff McKagan from fucking Guns N' Roses. They had Lou Ferrigno, who used a goddamn taser. Just all fighting, via this wonderful fucking video that made me laugh hysterically throughout it. And at the end of it, like I said, Vicky was the last one, like, oh, really? And she just started laughing and giving that evil look. And when they went back and talked about it, Chris Jericho was like, Chris Jericho was that Lou Ferrigno with a taser? It kind of reminded me of Anchorman after they had that battle. And they went back and was like, man, Rick killed a guy. Yeah, man, I think you should lay low. You killed someone with a trident. That whole entire concept. I love these guys, dude. It's Chris Jericho. And all the other guys are great. LAX is one of my favorite tag teams. They have been for the last couple of years. Sammy, I think, has unlimited potential. And I feel like Jake Hager is kind of coming into his own. I like how they build him up for that fight with Moxley as being – the MMA fighter that's past world heavyweight champion, but he has a little bit of personality in this, and I thought I just think they work out pretty well. And they're cheaply made, but not in like a negative way. They don't look expensive.
So I really love you pointed out the fact that it was like Rick killed a guy with a trident, because I was listening to the Major Wrestling Figures podcast when Jericho was on. By the way, check that out. Support your former tag team champions of Zack Ryder and Brian Myers. But anyways, he was on the podcast and he was talking about the little bit of the bubbly. Originally he did like a Spinal Tap joke where you remember the olives in Spinal Tap where he's like, oh, this little guy here, one had pimento cheese and one didn't. So he did that and like it didn't catch on. And they kept having audio issues, so he did that, and then he grabbed it and he said a little bit of a bubbly, and he was like, it's literally just the joke from Dumb and Dumber. I don't know how it got over. So when you said Anchorman, it kind of makes sense that it's just Jericho. I feel like Jericho is just good at everything.
Is that Lou Ferrigno with a taser? Yes. Why did he even need a taser? He's a Hulk.
It is very much that, but knowing that when Lloyd pops the champagne cork and it hits the owl and it kills it and he's a little bit of the bubbly, that's where that came from apparently, according to Jericho. So which the more this was absolutely incredible. I loved it. Like Jungle Boy showed up in a Jurassic Park scene and got punched in the face at one point.
Yeah, and then he went back on a fucking rope and came back and punched it. It was awesome. I love I really thought what they were going for just when they did it was I didn't know they were going to keep on going, but the male librarian, I forgot what his name is, when he got punched, I thought he was like, where the fuck did that come from? Like, what's going on? And that was going to be the end of it, which would have been funny by itself. But then they just kept on going and more people, and It was a lot of fun.
I mean, Kevin Smith and Jason Mewes were both there.
Jay and Silent Bob.
Yeah, Jay and
too.
Silent Bob. Yeah. Kevin Smith hit a headbutt. Like, I thought it was just a lot of fun. Whatever. It was a dumb, goofy thing. But, like, in a world where Matt Hardy exists, we just have to accept that dumb, goofy things happen, right?
Yep.
It's a goddamn Manitoba melee.
Oh, and Jericho's dad was in it too. That was pretty funny.
Oh yeah, that's true. He totally had his Rangers jersey on and was like dropping gloves. That was pretty good. Honestly, as a hockey fan, that was pretty good. Yeah, good shit. I enjoyed this. I can see some wrestling fans being like, "This was super dumb," and I'm like, "Did you see that Vince McMahon segment from the Smackdown a couple weeks ago?" But okay, I could see it both ways. This isn't really wrestling.
Oh, fuck it. The Best Friends with Orange Cassidy at their side defeated Jimmy Havoc and Kip Sabian with Penelope Ford in a no DQ match that still had tagging. Never understood how that fucking happens, but whatever. Chuck Taylor pinned Jimmy Havoc after an awful waffle onto the pile of chairs. This match was unneedingly cherish, I should just say. I mean, it's kind of like how I felt about WrestleMania with that ladder match. Like, God, like no momentum. They're just bashing the shit out of each other. You know, Jimmy Havoc is a monster, scary dude, with a little hair flippy thing, but, you know, just comes off very aggressive. The interaction between Penelope Ford and Orange Cassidy was pretty funny. And, yeah, they just – I felt the worst for Trent Beretta. I felt like he got his fucking ass kicked most of the goddamn time. But, yeah, the Best Friends end up winning and defeating Kip Sabian and Jimmy Havoc. What is this really – Jimmy Havoc, I don't think it really matters as much. Kip Sabian keeps on losing a lot. And he's supposed to be, doing big things. And like we've said a bunch, his valet and girlfriend, fiance, if you will, Penelope Ford seems to be more of the centerpiece when she's presented on these matches. But this is a fun, stupid match. Kind of reminded me of, like, back when they did chair matches after how popular TLC matches were with the Dudleys and Edge and Christian. Not a lot of grace to it, but a lot of chaos, if you will. So how did you like this match, Chris?
So I liked this match a lot until they got into the corner and looked for a tag. After the whole match wasn't a tag match to begin with. It's a fucking no DQ match. The first 5 minutes of this match, there is no tag. There is no tag team. It's just a tornado tag. They're all fighting all over the place. And then all of a sudden, someone's standing on the apron holding the fucking tag rope. And I'm like, what? Sorry, that's just bad. But the rest of it was great. Like, I think Trent Beretta is incredible, like you said. I think a lot of people have thought Trent Beretta is incredible. I mean, he's been in WWE. He's been in New Japan. He's kind of been all over the place. When's the next step going to happen, I guess, with Trent Beretta? Or who's going to let him have that next step, I guess, is a better question. But, yeah, I mean, Orange Cassidy's there. Penelope Ford's great. I don't really care that much about Kip Sabian. I hate to say that, but, like, not a huge fan. I think he's, like, pretty good in the ring. I just, outside of that, never been a huge fan of his.
Would you say least interested out of all of those people involved in the match?
Yes, and I was going to put him slightly above Chucky T, but god damn it, Chucky T tries his heart out. He really does. And after that promo, was it last week that Chucky T had? It was pretty good. You know what I mean? Like, he does try. Chucky T tries. I feel like Chucky T is giving me 100% every time he gets in the ring, so I have to have a little bit of love for Chucky T. So, yes, I would put Kip Sabian. Well, no, I'd put Jimmy Havoc at the bottom just because that's unfortunately that's just where Jimmy Havoc is going to fall in this company. And also, don't feel too bad because where the fuck is Joey Janela?
He's having a match next week, I believe, with the fuck was it? I don't know. It's going to be a crazy one. I think it's listed later on, but he's coming back. Maybe I'll have to look that up, actually, but I heard about that. So we had a video segment at Dr. Britt Baker's office. She introduced her makeup artist, who she called Reba. That was actually past TNA wrestler, Impact wrestler, Rebel. I don't know if that means she's signed or anything like that, or she's just used for this. Maybe she knew Britt outside, but it was pretty funny when she explained, like, yeah, my name is Rebel. She always screws up my name. And she seemed to kind of have some true feelings about Britt. Britt found out and then changed her tune, and then she talked about how great Britt was. Then Britt talked about how some people can't be role models and use photos of Tony Schiavone to illustrate her points. She was talking about, if you're fat, lose some weight. And God, it was so cringe against Tony, but he's going along with it. And, if you have certain aspects of yourself, you're not going to be able to make it, that much as a role model. And if you have crooked teeth, it's something to get rid of. And, it was all Tony, it was pretty funny. The way they're setting this up is pretty funny. The whole work wife thing. Tony was on one of the last being in the Elites, in which he was FaceTiming Britt Baker, and they were going back and forth. And then Brandy walked in, and Britt was like, "Who's in the room with you?" And he's like, "Oh, it's Brandy, blah 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 blah." And she goes, "Oh, okay, well I gotta go," and then started texting him, but he kept on trying to just read the text and accidentally press the button where all of them were being said out loud, where it's like, "Why are you around that stupid bitch?" Blah 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 blah. So it's funny when it keeps up to it, and then it goes back to Tony, and Chris Jericho's like, "So what the hell's the deal with that?" He's like, I haven't put on that much weight, and I don't have a snaggle tooth. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I made her mad. I need to text her. The whole thing's just funny, man. It's a good bit. And if anyone gets offended by it, just fuck off. It's a fucking heel building herself as being a heel, and I thought it was a fun segment. I hope Rebel actually gets some work too. I think that she would be a good, she's a bigger lady that looks like she could legitimately fuck you up, and yeah. But even if she's the makeup artist, Reba, how'd you like all that?
I mean, when you say get offended, what do you actually mean by get offended?
About calling out Tony for being fat and fucking having a snaggletooth and saying that you can't make it. Not every person can be a role model, especially if you're unattractive. All that type of shit that little babies would bitch about.
So just heel shit.
Exactly.
like. Okay, that's what I was getting at. I was like hoping I didn't miss something that was super fucked up, like the ramen noodle flip or whatever the fuck Jerry Lawler did the other week. I was just making sure I didn't miss anything. Like, yeah, calling someone snaggletooth and making fun of their weight, like that's like fucking Ric Flair. Shut up, fat boy. That's just heel shit. That's just normal. I like this a lot, and I love the weird Britt Baker Tony Schiavone thing. It harkens back to Miss Elizabeth and Mean Gene, where eventually someone's going to be like, talking to my girl. Mean Gene. It has that feel. And Tony, I really, really love Tony being like, oh, no, I don't know. I hope she's not mad at me. I'll text her. It's great. I don't know. I don't know how you couldn't like this. Tony Schiavone is playing this role perfectly, and it has added so much to the Britt Baker character where she's being a super heel and then makes fun of Tony Schiavone, but then also is like, so what's up, Tony? And then slides into his DMs like an ex-girlfriend or something. Like, I don't know what the fuck.
I love it.
There, but it's great.
I fucking love it. All right, so we had a match with Shawn Spears going against Baron Black. I definitely don't think it's helped or not. I don't think it's like helped the fact that he hasn't had Tully out with him cutting promos for him. He's basically the same personality that he used to have, but he's a heel. But it was a squash match, and Spears used the sharpshooter, and Black tapped out. Apparently he's now claimed the sharpshooter. Cesaro already did it. A million people already fucking do it. Two guys actually in a tag team already do it, so I don't think you're claiming anything. And just because you're Canadian doesn't mean that you should be using the fucking sharpshooter. Get original. Jesus. Anyways, what do you think about this match?
I mean, if I was him, I'd just put Tex Cloverleaf on and then talk shit about Dean Malenko. That's how you get yourself over.
That's all you had to do.
No, I mean, I thought the match itself was fine. I mean, it's just a simple squash match, nothing big. I'm not a huge Shawn Spears fan, haven't been since he was in NXT or WWE. I think he's a good wrestler, but I think that's just kind of all he is. I don't see anything there, and without Tully there to help push him, he's just kind of a guy. And I know they're trying to build him, trying to find a tag partner as a storyline, that kind of gimmick, but yeah, I don't care.
I don't either. All right. Marco Stunt was interviewed backstage. He said he knew that a lot of people don't think he belongs, but even with Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy unable to be there right now, he wants to prove himself. And so who the fuck does he decide to prove himself with? Brody Lee. Terrible idea. Terrible idea, Marco. Lee just basically annihilated him, threw him outside, just butchered him, brought him back inside, and hit Stunt. Pinned him after a giant power bomb, and that was about it. I don't think now. I guess beforehand I thought that Brody Lee was courting, Marco Stunt to join the Dark Order, with giving him so much attention after his matches. But I think he just wanted to murder him. So good on you. Did you have anything in the back of your head that thought that maybe Brody Lee was going to lose Chris to Marco Stunt?
No, but I do have something in the back of my head that thinks they're going to make a Vince McMahon joke where somehow Marco Stunt is Brody Lee's son.
I would love that.
It's it would be very much a Hornswoggle joke, but I feel like they might go there.
Can he come dressed out as a miniature Shane McMahon?
I mean, probably. Father. No, I mean, I did not think that Marco Stunt had a chance in this match. But I like seeing Marco though. I like Marco Stunt.
Me too.
I really like your was it Mickey Whipwreck?
Yep, Mikey Whipwreck.
Yeah, I think that's I don't know why the hell I said Mickey, but yeah, Mikey Whipwreck. I think that is a perfect example of what he could be in the future. I like Marco.
Yep.
Yeah, Brody had to kill him here. That's just what had to happen. Sorry, Marco.
R.I.P. By graffiti-covered wall in the desert, Jon Moxley talked about the things he is thankful for. Then he promised to be at AEW Dynamite next week. He alluded to the fact that, kind of things have been very slow. Obviously, some of it's out of his control, but a lot of it has been his performance, and he wants to, kind of reequate the reason why he is the champion, and he would be on next week. He was obviously somewhere in Vegas, in which he lives, over by someplace that had graffiti, but pretty good promo, and I'm looking forward to seeing Mox on next week. Are you excited about that, Chris?
Yeah, mostly because I don't know where he's going. So I'm excited to see what he does, and I'm sure we'll cut a promo. You're talking about Moxley, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm excited to see what they do. Who the hell is he going to wrestle? What is the lined up promo? Am I missing this? I like that he said his dogs were listening to eating some Metallica CDs. Or so he's loading his dogs in some Metallica CDs. You remember that line? In driving to Dynamite? Yeah, he's like, I'm going to load up my dogs, put some Metallica CDs in, and drive to Dynamite, which I thought was pretty funny.
He's fucking awesome. Yeah, we'll see what the champ has for us as far as next week. Then we had the main event.
He did say, don't forget to call your grandmother.
That was awesome. That was very important. He does have a sense of humor, man. That's a little bit different. It's a little bit off, and that's what I like about it. That type of stuff, Chris, really is stuff that reminds me of Piper. Like just random fucking weird sayings. Just be like, what the hell? Makes you laugh afterwards.
Yeah, for yours being Piper minus Terry Funk, where it's just that one weird random line that makes you think the guy's actually crazy. Which, I mean, Piper and Terry Funk, they're cut from the same fucking cloth, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think both of those are great comparisons.
Both of them have definitely been said to be influences of his. So I mean, it makes a lot of fucking sense.
Yeah.
Because they're crazy. Lance Archer going against Dustin Rhodes to advance to the finals of the TNT Championship Tournament. This was a brutal match. Dustin got color at one point. and Lance was just beating the shit out of him throughout everywhere, intimidating Brandy, just not backing down. At one point, QT Marshall came out. He was going to throw in the towel. Cody came out and stopped him and then started considering the concept of doing it himself. But Dustin didn't want him to and begged him not to. While they were arguing, Archer pulled Dustin back into the ring and repeated slammed his head against the mat before pinning him. Pretty brutal way to end the match. That's not a finisher that he does. It was just him sending a message. And now Jake the Snake's prophecy is going to be unfolded when everyone rushed the ring. Lance Archer didn't move a muscle. He just stared at Cody the whole entire time while he was trying to help his brother. And, we're going to get Archer against Cody. How'd you like this match? And who do you think is going to win and be the first TNT champion between Lance Archer, the Murder Hawk, and Cody Rhodes? Who's, by the way, he can go by Cody Rhodes now. He won that fucking back. I don't know if they've used the graphics yet because this might be pre-recorded. But when they go live, he's now Cody Rhodes. So that's pretty cool, by the way.
Yeah. I mean, we all called him Cody Rhodes anyway, so it didn't actually matter.
Yeah.
To be fair, no one stopped calling. I don't know what WWE thought they were going to get away with when he's Dustin Rhodes' son. No one's going to stop calling him Cody Rhodes. Whatever. That whole shit's stupid. I thought this match was actually great, and Dustin it was fucking incredible, and I thought they told a good story of making Lance Archer seem like this unstoppable monster, but also making it believable that Dustin could get a win. Could somehow pull it out. And that's just fucking great storytelling on his part, honestly. And I love kind of the finish with QT had the towel. He's thinking about throwing it in, and Cody just ran down. He's like, hey, we've already been fucked over by a towel one time this year. That's all.
Don't need to be doing that again.
Yeah. I loved it. And the standoff with Archer kind of, like you said, harkening back to what Jake the Snake Roberts was saying. I think maybe you have to put it on the Murder Hawk. All right.
That's going to be devastating for Cody.
It is, but it depends on how you go from there. I could easily see, maybe Jake doing something nefarious to Brandy, or the Murder Hawk getting a hold of Brandy to get him super heel heat. Because they seem like they're trying to involve her in the storyline a little bit here, that it might cost Cody the match somehow. Even if Cody is completely over or just outshadowing him, if there's just that one thing with Brandy that could be his downfall or whatever. So I think that's a pretty good story, and I think people will believe it. And also Cody's such a great babyface right now. I'm sure you can kind of promo, and then you just put him in a cage next time. It's fine. No one cares.
I agree with you. So one last thing about AEW before we move on to NXT that I wanted to mention. We actually had a new episode of Being the Elite, the 201 episode, proving they're going to keep on going. A conversation Matt and Nick joked about throughout the episode. But I think they have fun doing this, and as long as they do, they're going to keep on making these videos. But the big thing was, and they were both on their front porch, and they both started noticing something in the sky written. And they were like, wait, what does that say? And then it clipped out, and then at the end of it, they came back to it. And in the sky, very over-digitalized, which looked ridiculous, was FTR. FTR, originally from the Young Bucks, was a nickname to the Revival that was Fuck the Revival. They embraced it and put it as Forever the Revival. They're now called the Revolt, and apparently this is going to be happening, and they're going to go pretty quickly into this feud. So it looks like the Revival's coming to AEW, and we're going to have them going against the Young Bucks sooner than later, probably laying them out at some point in the next couple of weeks when they're going back to being live. I don't know if that means that the Revival won't be able to perform at the Crockett Cup once they have that back up and running for NWA, because they wanted to do that, or they can do both. No idea, but it looks like, it's not been confirmed, based on all this, we're going to be getting the Revival and the Young Bucks soon in the future rather than later. What do you think about that, Chris?
I think it should be a pretty good match. I will say that anyone who's listened to this podcast knows that I'm not the hugest fan of the Revival. I'm not on the Cornette train on the Revival. But they are good workers. I just never really saw the hype, even going back to NXT. They're phenomenal in the fucking ring. So if you're like the Young Bucks and the Revival are going to have a good match, and maybe they'll draw out that kind of what Cody and Dustin were able to draw out, where it's a little bit more of an old school tag match with some good storytelling and some good high spots. I could definitely see that. I'm not.
Do you think they're going to go? They're going to go mimicking Rock and Roll versus Midnight, or maybe the Rockers versus the the Brain Busters. I feel like that would be the thing they would base it off of.
I mean, I think if you've watched like modern tag team thing, the thing you would base it off of is the Golden Lovers versus the Young Bucks, right?
Yeah.
So you get your high spots, but you still get Nick selling. You can have Nick get beat up beforehand by Adam Page or something a couple weeks before, and then
still selling that back.
Yeah, still selling that back, pulling that rocket. That is very Rock and Roll Express, though. To be fair, but also the Young Bucks are just very much Rock and Roll Express in general, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like, I don't have anything against the Revival. I think they're great, and I could see why people would be super into them. They're just like, I don't know. They never really move the meter for me. Like, I don't put them. And whatever, like, you can say whatever you want about the Usos or the New Day or whatever, but at least as a tag team, I just always was more high on those guys than, like, say, the Revival.
There's nothing wrong with that. You're just being honest, but I am kind of I'm curious to find out what happens. But yeah, we had.
I'm curious. I will say this: I'm curious just because everyone puts them over so hard as being this great talent, and if they're able to go outside of the world of WWE and really show it to me, like even the world of NXT, I'm fucking really looking forward to that, because if like they're as good as Jim Cornette and a bunch of other people say, that this fucking Young Bucks Revival match that we've been kind of looking at for a long time should be incredible.
Yeah, no, I agree. Trying to find out the updated bracket for the Cruiserweight Championship tournament. We'll have to. I think I found it. So when we get there, we'll talk about it. But NXT, a lot of great wrestling on this, man. One segment definitely threw me off a bit that we'll get to. I'm not gonna say it's like Bailey, It's Your Life, but I thought it was one of the lesser things that I liked, and it had wrestlers that I actually liked within it. Let's just put it that way. But anyways, so we had the first interim NXT Cruiserweight title tournament match between Isaiah Swerve Scott going against El Hilo del Fantasma. And these guys, obviously, if you're a big fan of Lucha Underground and MLW, you've seen them go at it. I mean, Killshot and whatchamacallit, King Cuarto had quite a few matches. They have chemistry together. They fought with Shane Strickland and El Hilo del Fantasma without his mask, actually, over in MLW. So they had a good match. I mean, when you have chemistry like this, it makes sense. And really weird, but, remember, this is round robin. Swerve Scott defeated El Hilo del Fantasma. Fantasma already had a win. Isaiah already had a loss, but really good cruiserweight match. Yeah, that's all I have to say about that. Chris, what did you think?
So with Swerve getting a win here, it makes me think that he might be in the finals, honestly. I think it's like the comeback story. Do you know what I mean? Like, because This was his last opportunity. So now, like, you have the story of, like, he's kind of in, but not really. And it's really good to see him kind of get a push, because I think it was a couple of weeks ago, me and we were like, what the hell are they doing with Swerve? But yeah, I thought this match was great. I'm a little surprised they put Phantasma in this tournament in general. I mean, not like completely baffled by it, but there's some questionable decisions as far as pushing people in a round robin tournament where people are going to have to take losses like New Japan style in America. There's a correlation of wins. I don't know. I guess it's kind of the fan stigma, if that makes sense, as far as like how American wrestling is perceived versus like, the G1 or something.
Oh, absolutely. Let us go over these standings since I have them in front of me. So Group A, Group B, remember, like we said, round robin. Each person has to go against every other person, and once all the matches are done, whoever has the best score will go against whoever from Group A against Group B. Group A, Kushida has 1 win, 0 losses. Jake Atlas, same thing, 1 win, 0 losses. Drake Maverick has 1 win, 1 loss. That's something we'll be talking about later. Tony Nese has 2 losses. And then in Group B, Akira Tozawa has 1 win. Isaiah Swerve Scott has 1 win, 1 loss. El Hilo del Fantasma has 1 win, 1 loss. And Gentleman Jack Gallagher has 1 loss. So that pretty much is it. I don't know, man. I'm still thinking Phantasma and Kushida, but they'll probably throw some other stuff. Swerve is obviously from Group B, another person I could see winning that, like you were saying. But what do you think based on these standings?
I think Kushida versus someone. We'll go with that. But, I mean, Swerve, like you said, from Group B, I think Swerve is a good option just because of the way it seems like he's getting booked and how these tournaments normally go. But I could be completely wrong. Who knows?
Well, excited about it regardless. I've definitely been enjoying these matches. All right, so let's keep on going down with NXT. After that, we had a promo that earlier in the day, Dominik Dijakovic, was talking to someone and took issue with Johnny Gargano's words last week, I should say, of him being the best and on top and all whatnot, and challenged him to a match. So we'll get that next week. Do you think that honestly, both guys don't have the greatest personalities, Chris, or, Johnny's gotten better, but that should be a fucking badass match, I would assume.
Oh, yeah, it'll be one hell of a match. Dijakovic's just kind of the guy you throw against someone when you just need a match, it seems like. He's like kind of the NXT Dolph Ziggler at this point.
Yeah, I could see that, yeah. During the commercials, El Hilo del Fantasma fought off the masked kidnappers again, this time inside the Performance Center, and whooped all their asses. It was pretty good. So I still don't know where that's going, but it's still pretty intriguing. But Phantasma seems to be pretty beastly and beating these gentlemen luchadors in suits. What'd you think about this? Where is this going?
I have no idea, but why have him lose if you're going to have him whip the shit out of everybody later on in the show?
I guess with the idea that he can still come back within the round robin tournament, but yeah, that's a good point. That's definitely a good point.
Like, if the idea is that he's a monster that's gonna escape these kidnappers, then just have him fucking win. And if you want to do something down, if you want to have Swerve, just don't book that match. Put him in a separate group.
Yep.
It's a tournament. It's a tournament where you make up your own bracket. It's not like they drew out of a fucking hat.
Chris, they have to put all luchadors together in the same storyline. That's just how it works with WWE.
Yeah, they're all now part of the Lucha House Party. That's still just an ongoing house party.
Oh yeah, Kushida's coming back. He's going to be the leader. All right. So we had a match with.
I'm sorry. My immediate mind is like when El Generico comes back. Now we haven't seen Sami Zayn in forever.
God, that would be awesome. He's the leader. He's the leader of those luchadors. That would be so great. They're never going to do it.
They wouldn't do that, but it would be so great now that he's done with the orphanage in Honduras.
El Generico comes back.
And that brings Kevin Owens back to NXT because he wants to take out him again and kill him finally.
And the Drifter, what was his lucha name? El Vagabondo.
El Vagabondo.
Bring him back.
God.
It's a much better version of the Drifter.
All right, so Candice LeRae came out with her new aggressive look and silver hair and new demeanor and attitude. We had Johnny, who was just praising her as her valet, talking about how great she is, basically doing the whole Robert Stone thing, but whatever. But she went against Casey Canizaro, which I'm pretty sure she's still engaged to Ricochet. And, I know there was a part in time where she was thinking about leaving the company if this wasn't her thing, but apparently people like Candice and a lot of her friends within the industry convinced her to give it a second shot, which I'm happy because she can do some really cool stuff. And they were able to display a great dominant match where Casey, super babyface, able to get away from Candice, but Candice catching up to her and just dominating over her. So, LeRae entered with new theme, new gear, new entrance video, dubbed the Poison Pixie. And we had LeRae pinning Canizaro with their new finisher called the Wicked Stepsister. Actually, it was a pretty good move for the win. And put her opponent in the Gargano escape after the match just to add insult to injury. Thought it was a good match. I still don't know if I'm buying the whole heel turn. They seem to turn people very, very babyface into heels, but sometimes it doesn't work out like Kairi Sane, and sometimes it does work out like Io Shirai. So it just depends. But it was a good match. It was a very dominating match, and I'm glad to see Casey sticking around because I think she adds a very unique element with her wrestling. But how did you like this, Chris?
I thought that she was gone. I thought that after that Rumble match that she had said, "That's it, I'm done." So I don't know if has she had a match since Rumble?
No, and
like a year ago. Not even the last Rumble. It had been the Rumble before last, right?
Yeah, apparently some of her female friends, including the one she was going against, convinced her to give it a second go. And a lot of the trainers thought that she has a lot of potential, so I guess she decided to stay. Maybe Ricochet had something to do with that, since they're romantically linked.
I thought part of what she was saying was that there was like a nagging injury or something, and that's why she was kind of done. Because she did the whole CrossFit didn't she do American Ninja Warrior before this?
Yep. And she was a gymnast before that.
Yeah, so I thought that maybe that was why. You know what? Either way, great to see her back. This what was the finisher called? I'm trying to find the name of it.
Wicked Stepsister.
All right, Wicked Stepsister is a great name for a move, and it sounds like if Bray Wyatt would have went with that gimmick where he was Abigail, like dressed as Abigail. Instead of doing Sister Abigail, he could do like the Wicked Stepsister or something.
I like it because it's a combination of the surfboard stretch, but then you just do a stomp, kind of like, the curb stomp. It looks nasty.
My friend from work just got his kid back into watching wrestling, and he was like, "What should we watch?" And I was like, "Well, just watch Wednesday." I was like, "Record Wednesday, just watch both Wednesday shows." And he sent me a message Friday, because I guess they caught up because of school or whatever with the homeschool, and he's like, "There's no way that move is legal." It's for the Wicked Stepsister.
Nasty.
It's a pretty nasty looking move. He's like, "There's no way, even with rules in wrestling not matter, there's no way that move is legal." And it made me laugh really hard. So that's my highlight of this match, is just my friend being like, "There's no way that move is legal." I like that. I think that's a great finisher, and I love the actual name for that finisher too. I think it's pretty dope. I
like that, and they basically had a backstage thing later on the show. We can just go over now because it kind of still goes with this. But Katie Catanzaro was getting looked over by a medic, and also I forgot what the wrestler's name is. It's right off the top of my head. Someone I keep on saying is going to be a big wrestler. But anyways, they went by them and kind of just scoffed at him, and just her and Johnny Gargano are in love, and they're evil. They're in love and they're evil, Chris.
They're in love and they're evil, and Damian Priest said his moment arrived. That's what I remember from this little segment.
Yep. So we had, like you said, man, we had Damian Priest come out, cut a promo about his upcoming match with Keith Lee. I think he's getting more comfortable with his character. I like Damian Priest. I think that he actually had a great match with Keith Lee at the end of this. It was the two matches going on, since I watched them simultaneously. It was very hard to keep up. I had to rewatch both of them afterwards, but yeah, he's ready for his match. And then we had the weirdest fucking segment. Matt Riddle and Timothy Thatcher entered the arena. And Riddle surprised Thatcher with a game show segment, the newly Bro Ed show. With Byron Saxton as the fucking host, Riddle and Thatcher played games like the Newlywed Game, soundtracked by canned laughter and applause. Thatcher didn't really get it at all. The game was interrupted, although, by Imperium's Fabian Eichner and Marcel Bartel, and they beat the shit out of them and posed over Thatcher in the ring with the tag belts after beating them up. So I guess that's going to be our next thing. I thought this was funny. A lot of it was cringe. How some of the answers, that Riddle put down was the right answer, but the wrong answer, if you will, from what Timothy said. And I thought Byron Saxton should be a fucking a game show host. He looks like he's having the time of his life doing this. But I don't know if Thatcher's working as a replacement for Pete Dunne. And I also found out, which I had no idea, he's not British. Never knew that. But with his accent, I was like, wait a minute, is he even British? And I looked it up. He's from I think he's from Michigan or some shit. So either way, he's known in the UK, was trained in the UK, and loves the old school European style. But I don't know if Timothy Thatcher, especially a lot of guys, including Shawn Michaels, sees a lot in him, really needs this at all. I would rather have him just really having awesome technical matches like he was doing in MLW and whooping people's asses. But whatever, I know these guys worked with each other in Evolve. They're good friends. It's just he's coming off awkward where Pete seemed to work, if that makes sense, Chris.
I think it's fine because eventually, if they just continue the run, Pete Dunne will come back, and then you get a Timothy Thatcher Pete Dunne match,
which would be great.
And Matt Riddle will be torn on which bro he loves the most, which will also be fucking great. There was one part in this, real quick, and then we can move on, where Matt Riddle, he said he doesn't remember because he typically wakes and then his wife bakes. I don't know if you noticed that. Where it's like so funny. He made a wake and bake joke, but kind of dodged around it for his character.
He's good at doing that, man. Especially with the sexual innuendos also to Timothy Thatcher. I thought that was pretty funny. But we had Adam Cole, same place, revealed very angrily that William Regal set an NXT Championship defense match for him against Velveteen Dream next week. He cut a promo about how he still doesn't think Dream is worthy and that he will beat him, and that is undisputed. Well, there's a certain reason why I don't think Velveteen Dream is going to win that, but I could be wrong. But either way, how'd you like this promo, and who do you think is going to win next week for the title between Cole and Dream?
Adam Cole, baby! I like the promo. I have to agree with you, unless this thing's already canned and taped, which would be very, very Impact of WWE if that's the case. I'm assuming this thing has not already been taped.
No, I think they're going live again next week. I think that's the thing.
Yeah, so I would assume Adam Cole's going to win just because we don't know what is going on with that scenario. And we talked about it, and it's a hard conversation to dodge. And once again, I think Velveteen Dream could have easily been the future of the company, and I still don't think that's necessarily an impossibility. But you don't want to hitch your wagon to something you're unsure of, and that's a very not WWE thing to do to some extent.
Yep.
So, yeah, I think Adam Cole just probably retains. Maybe they set up something cool, though. I mean, you could still set up stuff, you know? It's, there's things they can do out of that. I mean, I guess, like, let's just say worst case scenario, right? And Velveteen Dream is not there. Who's Adam Cole's next opponent?
I don't know. I have no idea. I mean, since we're going to get him, apparently, this also makes me confused with the travel thing, because Finn Balor at least is going to address who attacked him. So maybe he's recording this in Ireland, or maybe he actually still is in the U.S. But if
he's in that little, like, cathedral room that, like, Neville was in, like, a few months ago.
Something like that.
Cut his promo.
All right,
so gear.
if it's him over in the UK, cutting a promo, probably claiming that Walter was responsible, or Walter's men, or whatever, to build that up, you know, great. But he's not going to be on the product now. If he is there, go for him versus Adam Cole. I mean, you literally have the two most efficient champions in the fucking history for male champions in NXT. Why not have them in a program together?
I don't. I think that's where we thought it was going to go, is the NXT versus the heavyweight, right? At some point. I mean, I just always assumed it was going to be Walter.
Me too. And it's so weird what's going on with the UK. I get it, traveling. I get all that too. I just don't know where people are half the time, because you have Walter in the UK, and then Imperium are showing up on NXT. So
I don't think this is ever going to happen, but would you be hyped if they did some kind of crazy double, like, let's say they do the unification of the titles and it ends up being like a 6-man match and somehow Tyler Bates wins. Would you be hyped on that? Because I kind of would.
I would love Tyler Bates to have a championship.
Like, just both titles.
Yeah, man, that'd be awesome.
Great.
All right, so the NXT Women's Championship match. I thought it was a really good match between Charlotte Flair and Mia Yim. These ladies have trained together. Charlotte says, since Mia was previously as Jade, she's been a wrestler for a little while, she took her under her hand and really tried to help her out while they were training in FCW before coming to NXT. And then Mia, I believe, dipped out, came back, and, Charlotte picked her as her first opponent before going against Io Shirai, which, like I said to you, Chris, it makes it look like she's a stepping block. And she kind of even just said, I want to have a good match with you because you're a good hand, which is a back slap comment within wrestling. But these ladies have put on a good match. I will say, because I've heard people praise the fuck out of this match, I thought Mia Yim was a little bit sloppy at the beginning, but she got her rhythm down. And then both ladies put on a pretty good match. But she went for her finisher, and Charlotte reversed it, put her in the figure 4, and elevated it to the figure 8 and had her tap out. Io Shirai confronted Flair after the match. Really looking forward to that match, too. How did you like her match against Mia Yim?
I was a little surprised because me and you thought this thing might drag out a little longer with Mia Yim, right? A couple weeks ago, we were talking about this maybe being down the line, and then we got the match this week. Am I crazy on that?
No, we were talking about this being something that lasts a little while. But, yeah, apparently they decided not to do that.
Okay. I'm just making sure that, like, I didn't miss something. I thought this was a very, very good match. One of the better matches on the show, in my opinion. I thought this was a really good match. I'm not going to say it's, like, the best Charlotte Flair match of all time, but it was, like, pretty damn good. And also just proves Charlotte's great. And Mia looked good here. I will say, like you said in the beginning, a little bit of maybe you haven't worked together in a while kind of thing. But once they got the groove, I thought this was a really damn good match. And I definitely liked the Mia put her in basically the Walls of Jericho, which I think is, what do they call it now? What did fucking he call it? He called it a high angle Boston Crab or something, which is just the Walls of Jericho.
Elevated Boston Crab, yep.
Yeah, so where you just stand up into a Boston Crab, which is like not as effective as doing a normal Boston Crab if you've ever been put in a Boston Crab. It sucks. But anyways, I like that whole. I loved the end sequence of this match. I thought it was very good. Charlotte Flair, once again, incredible. I think perfect fit for NXT, and hopefully she's having a hell of a lot of fun there. And doing this, and if the idea is to build back up Rhea, which I'm assuming that is the case, having Charlotte wrestle in NXT is not the worst idea that they could do.
No, absolutely not. So we had another apocalyptic vignette played by Karrion Kross and Scarlett Bordeaux, and they said their arrival will be next week. Will we have a confrontation with Tommaso Ciampa? Will we have whatever is going to happen? I'm looking forward to this. This has been building up really well. I like the whole TikTok thing. I think that I like Karrion Kross. I know that a lot of people thought that name was dumb, but the reason why he did that, if you knew anything about Greek mythology, Karrion is the Grim Reaper that brings you.
Tell me about that new Hercules movie that's coming out, Dane.
Yeah. But no, seriously. So the Grim Reaper on the boat that you give your coins to, and he takes you to Hades, is Karrion. So they're playing off of that because WWE can't use words like killer. I mean, even killer Karrion Kross, that's too much. Whatever. I guess then he'd be called KKK. That's not something good. But
yeah, no, that would be very bad, actually.
I've been looking forward to these two showing up. I was very impressed by both of them in Impact, and yeah, I just think that Killer Kross is a monster. He's going to be a fun person to really shove into the NXT, with all the great wrestlers they have for a character, and fuck some shit up. And I'm glad that he's going against Ciampa at first. I think that will be a good feud. But how'd you like this promo? Are you excited about seeing these two show up next week? And do you think that Ciampa is going to retaliate for getting his ass kicked by Killer Kross?
I don't think Ciampa is going to retaliate. I feel like Kross is still going to have his number for a while. I'm just assuming this would be a dragged out thing, or he's just going to continue to get his number for a little bit here just because of the character. I love this, and I just recently watched some, I think it was like 2017, 2018 Killer Kross in TNA because of Pluto TV, as we talked about earlier. Actually versus Brian Cage, who we also talked about earlier. This guy's an absolute monster and is a very unique character. I'm not a huge fan of the Karrion Kross. I like Killer Kross better. I don't understand why you have a big deal with having a guy named Killer when you have a guy named Dexter Loomis on your roster. But and in your Hall of Fame you have Killer Kowalski, but whatever. It's fucking WWE. I thought this was really good. Let's just say that. And I like the character of Killer Kross. And I also like the character of Dexter Loomis. I hate the name, but I like where they're going with these two characters. They just need to be highly separated. And that would be the one thing I would say. I didn't like that they were back to back.
Yep.
On
I
the
agree.
show.
And don't sleep on Scarlett Bordeaux, because as a wrestler and as a character, she's actually good in both fields. So she's going to be good as a valet, and playing this more dominatrix evil style with her husband, I think is going to really work out for her. But Killer Kross, man, him and Brian Cage, Chris, were my two. I think they're going to – them and Willie Mack. Willie Mack's another one that I thought could do big, at AEW or WWE watching Impact.
Yeah, and I didn't mean to skip over Scarlett Bordeaux. I think she's phenomenal from the matches that I've seen, and obviously is just such a great counterpiece to that character, right? So they can do whatever they want with that character. I think it'll be money. But yes, I remember us definitely 1 or 2 years ago talking about Willie Mack, Brian Cage. We had a whole thing about Impact wrestlers. Maybe you guys go back into the archives and
That's when we were talking about people like Jeff Cobb and Keith Lee, for people to watch within the industry. So
specifically you were huge on Keith Lee even before NXT. I remember you're a huge Keith Lee guy.
I've said it
turned
before.
Me on to Keith Lee. So bask in his glory now because of you.
I'm telling you, my person this year to make it big, ex-buddy. Well, he is actually good friends with MJF, part of his old faction called Dynasty. But Alexander Hammerstone is someone that's going to be well known within the next 2 years. Jim Cornette, when he was there, said the same thing. He looks like a young Hulk Hogan. I mean, I hate to say that and make that comparison. I doubt that he'd want that, but he's a great heel, and he's starting to turn into an awesome baby face. So he's from MLW. Check him out. He might see him in the future.
I'm gonna throw one out. I'm gonna throw one out there. Wardlow. He's gonna be huge.
Yeah, I think so too, man. Wardlow is gonna be fucking big. He already is big, but you know what I'm saying. Yeah, I think he's gonna be. I think there's a chance he could become babyface because of MJF, kind of, doing not the Vincent thing, but like after a while, acting like he's a fucking slave.
Yeah, just Shawn and Diesel.
Exactly.
And then you bring in another guy to be MJF's bodyguard, and you just do that storyline. Everybody will fucking love it, because who doesn't like Sid, Diesel, and HBK? Great.
Yep. Exactly. And like we've been saying, another person I think both of us are looking forward to is Dexter Lumis. He went against Shane Thorne, and they had. I know that you're not big on it. I do actually like it, but I mean it comes off cheesy. It really does. It's too on the nose. But
so does Damian Priest though. Like it does seem very like I created a wrestler in a video game, just to some extent.
But what I was noticing, man, I was talking about his eyes and how they don't remind me of, they're not like Pillman's look. They're not like Edge's look. They're not like Cactus Jack, Brody Lee, or Bruiser Brody. It's actually, when I'm watching all the stuff to catch up for our conversation about Randy Savage had that same crazy bluish gray eyes that would just look through your fucking soul. And that mixed in with the mannerisms of him being just weird and like holding the guy after he chokes him out afterwards, like certain things. And I love that we have this serial killer character that has an infatuation with the Undisputed Era and could be the foil that finally takes them down and really fucks with, hey, maybe that's Adam Cole's next person. Maybe they're going to go directly into that. I have no idea, but I really like Dexter Lumis. In the ring, he reminds me of Jake, and with a lot of extra creepiness just added in there. My roommate came in while doing the laundry in my room and was asking me questions about this, and she's obviously, like a lot of ladies, watched every fucking documentary about serial killers known to man, and she was like, I love that type of concept. And I was like, yeah, he's supposed to be kind of like borderline serial killer that's obsessed with the main bad guy group and is creeping them out. And she thought that was really cool. And then right afterwards, Brody Lee came out, and I was like, and he's a cult leader. It's like, see, they can't get creative in wrestling. But yeah, I'm a fan, man. They've done a good job presenting him so far. How'd you like this?
I think they've done a great job presenting him. I just don't like the name. I think the character itself's great. I thought the match was really good. They're doing a good job of putting the character over itself. I just don't like the name. I'll get over the name eventually, but until then, I'm just going to say I don't like the name. And did you watch Aquarius?
No.
With Fox Boulder. What the hell is his name? David Duchovny. So I'm convinced, I want you to watch one episode of this with Charles Manson in it, that he is just doing Bray Wyatt's gimmick for Charles Manson's voice. Because Charlie Manson doesn't sound anything like Bray Wyatt, but this guy totally sounds like Bray Wyatt. So all the listeners out there, pull up that Aquarius with David Duchovny for the Bray Wyatt shout out.
And check it out. Yeah, I'll definitely do that. I like finding out layers of stuff that probably inspired, said person.
It's kind of crazy to me because there's a lot of Charlie Manson, but it definitely comes off more like he sounds like Bray Wyatt. And when you hear it, you're never going to be able to unhear it, to the point where my wife stopped watching the show because I started talking about fireflies.
Yes. All right, so we have the interim NXT Cruiserweight title tournament match, second one. And it was Tony Nese, Drake Maverick. Tony Nese talking a lot of shit to Drake. Them emphasizing even more about him being let go from the company and this being quote unquote his last big thing really makes me think, because this wasn't a work. A lot of people got let go. That's not bullshit. But Drake's speech, that rumor that inspired Triple H, and that he's basically fighting for Drake to be furloughed as opposed to completely let go, much like Gerald Briscoe and the referee, I can't remember his name, Mike Chioda, who they plan on trying to get back once they have everything up and running again. I think possibly Hunter, maybe Jeremy Borash, one of the people that is in his ear, thinks that Drake could be a viable asset on NXT, and I loved his comeback. His comeback was great. I was cheering for him, and he got aggressive. He got pissed off, and he started fucking up Tony Nese, and he beat him. And now Tony, after being a past NXT champion, he's 0-2. He's got 2 losses now, and Drake Maverick has 1 win. So I like this. I don't expect Drake to win this. I don't know where he's going to be with the company. I just hope they're not exploiting his downfall as a way to hype up a story, and they're still going to fucking fire him at the end of this. That would be disgusting to me. And we said that last week.
Yeah, do you think they're going to reshoot it? Because he said he had 3 matches left, and those were already basically recorded and in the can when he did that video. So do you think they're just going to change it? Because otherwise that means he's going to lose next week and be out of the tournament.
It's probably going to happen.
So if they did change their mind on Drake Maverick and they were like, oh man, people really like this guy. It's like, yeah, no sheesh, Rockstar Spud, dumbasses. You could have done a lot more besides make him piss himself with AOP or whatever the fuck that was.
I wish NXT had him from the beginning, and they didn't just put him on 205 Live as a commissioner.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to be
WWE.
I'm not trying to be too negative because he did piss himself in the ring, man. That's like a hard to come back from thing. But he also got pinned by King Maxwell, so there's that. But that's more. That's just more a different life kind of thing. It's like It's like the DC alternate universe. That's like when you get pinned by King Maxwell, it's just alternate universe. You don't count that the normal.
Yes.
Yeah. I like Drake Maverick winning here. I think me and you both are on the same page. We're like, please don't fuck this guy. And definitely don't utilize the fact that this guy got legitimately fired to make your matches slightly more over. Especially because he said he had 3 matches left, so next week would be his last match, and they'll probably do some kind of sad send-off video like he died or something. Just what I would do is you got something to build off of. Apparently Triple H likes the guy. It doesn't fucking matter because he's on NXT anyways. I don't know, get rid of Bo Dallas, who hasn't been used in years, which nothing against Bo Dallas, but keep this guy, build a storyline out of this. Make it into he wins this tournament and he has to fight every day for his job like Ric Flair did or something. There's so much you could do with this, and it just sucks that he's put in this situation. And I think Drake Maverick, aka Rockstar Spud, is a phenomenal wrestler, has done a lot for his size, and has wrestled kind of like everyone everywhere that you could think of, and really full for him. Sucks.
Me too. I completely agree. All right, so announced for next week. Kind of already said it. Charlotte Flair versus Io Shirai. Johnny Gargano versus Dominik Dijakovic. And for the NXT Championship, Adam Cole against Velveteen Dream. Good matches for next week. Looking forward to all 3 of them, especially a championship match. What do you think?
I think Charlotte Flair's going to win. That's going to be one hell of a match, and I think that's going to build to whatever they do down the line, which might be some kind of step match with Mia or something. I feel like there's got to be a way to get the title off Charlotte without Charlotte taking a loss, if that makes sense.
3-way match?
Yeah, like a 3-way or a 4-way match, because I feel like they're still trying to protect Charlotte because they don't know what they're doing with the female roster on the main roster right now. outside of like maybe Shayna and Becky, if that makes sense. So I feel like maybe that leads to a 3-way match with and Mia Yim will definitely be back involved at some point. But that should be one hell of a match with Io and Charlotte. Should be fucking phenomenal because Io is like she's like one of the only female wrestlers besides Kairi Sane to have a 5-star Meltzer match. So maybe they'll turn the fuck up with her and Charlotte. That should be pretty good.
Who is the queen of the moonsault?
I mean, I don't know. Who's the queen of the elbow drop? It's the best, Kairi Sane. Kairi Hojo.
That's true. All right, so our last match was the NXT North American Championship match. Keith Lee won against Damian Priest. Good match by both guys. I keep on saying this, though. Keith Lee needs to go on to someone else. I don't want to be Killian Dane, Dominik Dijakovic, or whatchamacallit, Damian Priest after this. We can get a guy that's smaller. He actually works really well with them. But I like Damian Priest in this. That move he does, Chris, where he runs and puts his right foot on the top rope and then does a backflip to the outside. Pretty impressive. These guys should not be able to do half the shit they do. It's kind of like what we're going to talk about. We actually didn't mention it. Now I can mention it. When Murder Hawk did the old school, and I've seen him do this live. It's fucking awesome. All the way to the other side into a moonsault and completely obliterating the person. How the fuck do any of these guys do it? Keith Lee would win with 2 spirit bombs. I thought was pretty badass back to back. And he is still the NXT North American champion.
This was another Keith Lee Dijakovic match, and it was pretty fun.
That's all you can really say.
I mean, like, this is like the 6th time we've seen this match?
Yep.
So, I mean, like, the guys are working their ass off. They're having great fucking matches, but there's only so much you can do 6 times in a row.
Yep, it's like they put in like okay, this big guy shuffled out. Why don't we put in this guy?
Right. I mean, they're both working their asses off. Like, they're doing crazy shit that, like, the size of these people should not be able to do, and it's incredible. Even Kevin Owens is somewhere like, how the fuck did he just do that?
Yeah, that's good.
But it's they're fucking incredible, great athletes. I thought this was a really fun match to watch. The problem is that it's that wear and tear. The same thing with to me with Gargano and Ciampa to some extent, and some of the other matches in WWE right now. I'm just tired of it.
Yep, I agree. Speaking about tired of, just kidding. Let's go over WWE Friday Night Smackdown, the results real quickly to get to our last main topic. Actually, it started off, I'll say, as Daniel Bryan and King Corbin started off with the match. Before the match, Bryan cut a passionate promo about being hungry and wanting to win Money in the Bank. And Corbin came out being a dickbag. This was actually a pretty damn good match. Both guys were on their shit. Corbin was pretty quick. I liked all the comeback moves that they pulled. I especially liked it when, Daniel Bryan was doing his normal thing where he ran into the turnbuckle and did the drop kick backflip and then went to do it again and then got the not the end of days but his other move from Corbin. Thought it was really sequenced well. So I was, I usually talk a lot of shit about Corbin, but I thought he did pretty good in this match. Corbin then Bryan was he was beating the crap out of Corbin, and Corbin got a DQ because he hit him with a ladder and then was confused with the ref of why he got eliminated, even though he blatantly did it in front of him. And Bryan briefly got the yes lock on Corbin, but Shinsuke Nakamura and Cesaro attacked and tossed Bryan into a pile of ladders. How did you like this opening match, Chris?
Sorry, I couldn't find my mouse cursor. It was terrible. I actually like this match a lot, and it's just one of those weird Daniel Bryan things where I like the match better than I thought I was going to turn out. As far as that spot where he goes to do the rocket kick in the corner and got caught into, was it deep six? I think that's what Corbin calls it. That
Yep.
spinning sidewalk. It's basically a spinning sidewalk slam. Let's just call it what it is. Corbin is really good at wrestling when you give him the right opponent and don't have him do rest holds. Because if you go back to the NXT shit, he's still really good. And me and you put him over for like both of his signature moves. I still think those are like the deep six and what was the other one you called out, his actual finisher? I can't think of the fucking name of it now. I remembered one and you remembered the other one.
Now I forgot it.
End of days.
End of days.
Yeah, both of those are fucking.
I also
so
I
brutal.
love the wraparound that he jumps outside, wraps around the post, uses the momentum to come and slide in the ring, and then give him the whatchamacallit, clothesline. And the first time he nailed it, and the second time Daniel Bryan used it to put him in the yes lock, and I thought that was a great use of it. Like they had good chemistry for this match.
Yeah, and I think that's part of it is like, at some point it's kind of what you want Corbin to do in the ring, and also how fucking good Daniel Bryan is to probably put most of that match on. But yeah, Baron Corbin, we've talked about him on the podcast and negative light and positive light, because I feel like we both put him over and buried him to some extent in the past, mostly just because I think the booking is bad a lot with him. Yeah, I thought this match was fucking actually great. Like, I liked it. As far as like a fucking TV match, it was spot on. And then the aftermath of poor Daniel Bryan getting thrown into ladders and shit. Yeah, that was the thing that happened. Like, I still don't get, like, it's going to be a tag match with ladders? What is going on? What is the build, I guess?
They're hyping up the TLC match because both guys are involved in it.
I mean, I get that, but isn't Daniel Bryan in a tag team and these guys are also in a tag team? So wouldn't it just be a fucking tag match? Like, why would you not just do a tag match for the titles? Oh, wait, they don't have the fucking titles.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's one of those things.
And also, why do people want Daniel Bryan to fall off heavy shit all the time?
I don't.
Like, I mean, like, look, Daniel, we believe in you. You went to the hyperbolic time chamber. You became Goku. You came out Super Saiyan 2 or whatever. But, like, bro, I don't need you falling off high shit anymore.
You don't have to do that.
Yeah, you don't have to do that. You don't have to do flying headbutts. Like, look, couple yes kicks, label lock. I'm good. I'm good with that. Just the same way as I'm good as, like, all right, Undertaker did his 5 things, and that's awesome. It's just do like your 10 things, dude.
Yep, I agree. All right, so we had a segment where Braun Strowman came out, get these hands, all that stuff. Bray Wyatt interrupted him with another Firefly Funhouse and talking about the black sheep of the family and how he betrayed him. And, yeah, it kind of sets up stuff for their match. After that, Sheamus defeated Leon Ruff and just got his ass completely destroyed. With a bro kick, Sheamus wasn't impressed from Michael Cole presenting the new Jeff Hardy video and said that he'll be here when Hardy returns to SmackDown next week. So it's going to set up that. I hope they didn't just put that match together to force it on the what the hell ever pay-per-view, the Money in the Bank pay-per-view. Stretch that out to me. I think you can do something with Sheamus and Jeff Hardy. But how'd you like Braun Strowman being the black sheep, and I'm not talking about Chris Farley with Bray Wyatt, and then Sheamus and him saying that he's going to basically step up to Jeff Hardy next week.
Do you think they're going to release Jeff Hardy as soon as the Sheamus match is done? Because he probably only has 1 month left of his contract, and they're not throwing him a Money in the Bank, so he's not going to be jumping off of anything.
Could be.
Which, I mean, even after
5-second bro kick, bro.
Whatever. It got Daniel Bryan over. They'll have to resign Jeff Hardy if he gets 5-second bro kicked. Where's AJ Lee?
Out.
Where's AJ Lee at when you need her?
She's hiding underneath the ring.
AJ Lee. She's under the ring. Punk's like, where's my wife? What does he call her? Ape? He calls her Ape or something? Like, that's his nickname for her? I was like,
Your CM Punk a second ago sounded like Laurinaitis.
Oh, I don't really.
Where's my wife?
Where's my wife? God damn it!
God damn it!
I'm the Raw Anonymous GM.
Hey kid, let me just tell you about something.
Have you ever skateboarded down to the ring in Japan? My tag team partner was Shane Douglas. I don't know. That's all I know about John Laurinaitis, other than he was a Vince guy for a while. Now I'm fucking just baffled because we got on John Laurinaitis. No, I was I really am lost now. Fucking. So I was talking. Oh, you talked about the Sheamus bro kick. I just assume Sheamus has got to beat Jeff Hardy just because Jeff Hardy's on his way out, right? He's got like a month, 2 months. And
they're hyping him up a lot, though. That's the only thing. That's a lot of video package to put money into.
I mean, I guess, but Jeff's always going to go with his brother.
Yeah. Well, let's go to the Money in the Bank qualifying match. Carmella going against Mandy Rose. It's kind of set up in the back beforehand with Mandy Rose and Otis both having respective matches, and how, Mandy gives him the kiss on the cheek like Prince or Elizabeth style, and he says, "Oh yeah." So I've come to the conclusion, Chris, that Otis is just stealing Macho Man and Dusty Rhodes like mannerisms and combining them, and that's what he's doing.
I could definitely see that. I could definitely see what you're saying there.
Just wondering. But anyways, Carmella defeated Mandy Rose because of a distraction from Sonya Deville and a super kick. After the match, Sonya attacked and screamed at Mandy. And in the back, when she was getting taken care of, Dolph Ziggler asked Otis if she was all right. So, yeah, that was interesting. He had a match against Otis at the end of the night. How'd you like this women's qualifying match for the Money in the Bank? Glad to see Carmella going to win, honestly. And now it makes me think that they're going to do Mandy Rose and Sonya at Money in the Bank.
Yeah, that's the thing, is where do you actually go from it? But you kind of get. You know what? I like seeing Carmella get a win, but I also just miss her with R-Truth.
Me too.
I'm not gonna lie.
Hey, do you think that R-Truth is gonna be somehow involved in this fucking Money in the Bank thing? Maybe like coming out of Vince McMahon's office, thinking that he's a part of the match, and also trying to infiltrate it? Because if they do that, I'll laugh my fucking ass off. I will.
I hope he does the opposite of what he did for the Rumble, and he comes down and just tosses everyone over the ropes and celebrates like he won.
That's so awesome.
Did you remember his Rumble thing where he just showed up with the fucking ladder?
I love R-Truth.
Dude, Ron Killings is the best. Even going back to that 3 Live Crew stuff in TNA and the first African American NWA heavyweight champion. Put some respect on R-Truth's name. He's the best. Yeah. Ron Killings is a hell of a fucking wrestler. As Manny Fernandez once told me, if you want a guy to shoot on you, R-Truth could shove your arm up your ass.
Wow. That's definitely something.
For whatever.
Hey, you want to hear something in history? Nothing taken back from R-Truth becoming the first NWA champion. Back in the day, Bobo Brazil beat Buddy Rogers in a match, and Rogers claimed basically bullshit, and it was never count as an actual victory within the lineage of the NWA title.
Yeah, yes. That is a good thing to point out. That is garbage. I mean, I guess you could technically count what's Farouk's legit name? Ron Simmons.
WCW
winning WCW, but that's not really the NWA title. It gets really weird when you lose lineage, but it was a huge deal when Ron Killings won it, and that character during that time period, TNA Wild Style or NWA Wild Style / TNA at that time period, it was a huge fucking deal, and he's phenomenal. I can't believe the WWE ever let him go. I mean, he was teaming with Road Dogg already, and then they just let both of them go, and then they just teamed to TNA for a while, which is fucking weird because he was K-Quick originally in WWE. He's an amazing wrestler, and as he's proven, you give me something, I'll get it over.
Oh, I gotta talk to an invisible person that's a John Cena fan, little Jimmy. All right, I'll get it over.
I'll do it. I will do it. All right, so the Forgotten Sons went against the New Day, and they actually defeated them thanks to Jackson Ryder, or Riker, I should say. Miz and Morrison were on commentary, and the Forgotten Sons have pinned now the SmackDown Tag Team Champions. Lucha House Party beat Miz and Morrison. I don't even know why they're involved right now in the situation at all and where they were, but either way, this situation, I'm rooting for the Forgotten Sons because of Jackson Riker. Probably not the best reason since he's not going to win the fucking belts, but this might be a scenario where I think these guys might do better on the main roster than they did in NXT. Still weird having them in the mix, but I did like how they called out the Miz for, not being an actual fucking Marine like them. That was kind of funny last week. So, what'd you think about them beating the New Day?
I just like that this show has become very TNA positive. We're like, we hope Jackson Riker kicks the shit out of him, Gunner, basically. Yep. Man, it's really weird without them switching up the tag teams. I mean, with Austin's still hurt, right? Xavier.
Yep.
So it's
his
weird.
Ego's hurt too, from what Chris Jericho did. Pointed out that whatever Austin's full name is, lost.
Austin Creed.
Against
Creed. Lethal Consequences.
Against fucking Cody Rhodes in collegiate wrestling in Georgia. That was
also once again just TNA. Lethal Consequences. Austin Creed. Just might as well go the full round.
Oh Lord.
But I thought that was very weird that they won. I mean, maybe these guys. I don't get it. They tried to book them in NXT, and outside of like Gunner, like they're not very good.
I just want him by himself with his own gimmick, doing some fucking cool shit. I'd like to see him and Aleister Black in a feud, whatever.
If he's already doing the biker gimmick, which is kind of what their thing is, like kind of Aces of Eight, Sons of Anarchy type deal. Wouldn't it be a whole lot cooler if it was just him by himself, American Badass style, Undertaker style?
Yeah, dude, that would be fucking awesome.
Fucking do that.
Yep.
People love Taker when he shows up listening to Metallica on a motorcycle.
Dude, they do. So Lacey Evans and saved Tamina from a attack from Bayley and Banks, and we're gonna have Tamina and Evans against Banks and Bayley next week. I don't care. All right, last match, Money in the Bank qualifying match. Otis and Dolph Ziggler. This is actually a pretty damn good match. Both guys are entertaining, and I like how they started off. Both of them are collegiate wrestlers, so it was a lot of grappling at first, and then it spilled out everywhere. Dolph doing things to keep himself afloat, heelish, and Otis finally using his power to take down Dolph and do his. I'm sorry, but one of the only things I don't like that Otis does, and that's the Caterpillar on Ziggler to win the match and qualify himself for that. We also found out, Chris, and I don't know how they're going to do this, the women's, TLC, or the women's Money in the Bank match and the men's Money in the Bank match will be filmed simultaneously at the exact same time.
Wait, what? I missed this part. So they're going to do both matches at the same time on top of the towers, and then someone's going to die?
Yeah.
Okay. Is Jeff Hardy involved?
No. He's not.
Okay. So I'm going to split screen watch a pay-per-view on the WWE Network at the same time to see who's going to win the Money in the Bank?
Yeah, pretty much.
That seems like a very terrible idea.
Yep. So the two Money in the Bank ladder matches take place at WWE headquarters in Stamford, but both matches will be taking place at the exact same time, which, considering what this is supposed to be all about, actually makes a lot of sense from what this article is saying, because the fact that it's going to be a bunch of stupid segments. So I'm assuming it's going to break out into teams, them all trying to get to the top, and then you'll have two ladders set up to get to the main thing. So
But
it's going to be a lot.
It's supposed to be live at the exact same time.
Yeah, they're going to release them at the bottom at the exact same time to get to the top. And, you know, that like I said, I'm assuming people are going to work together and whatnot, and there's going to be elevator fights and all this ridiculousness. And then at the top, there'll be 2 sets of ladders getting to the male and the female respected Money in the Bank. And, you know, whoever gets there first is going to win.
Is there going to be 2 different pay-per-views?
Nope, this is all one pay-per-view. This is the main event. They have apparently they're doing a couple matches, one of them being Braun versus Bray, and those will be the matches leading up to it. And then those giant.
Yeah, I get that. I'm talking about this crazy ass, but I didn't realize they were both at the same time. I thought they were going to be 2 separate things.
No, and that's the thing is that means that from what all of us think, this is going to be probably recorded very similar to AJ Styles and The Undertaker. Like very much, you know, segmented like a motherfucker until they get to the main ladder spots, I would assume, on the top. And then they'll probably have it more wrestling oriented. But this is going to be pre-recorded, heavily edited, and just a bunch of mayhem. Yeah.
Huh. You fucking baffled me by them being at the same time. I just thought they were gonna just do Money in the Bank matches like normal. I guess I missed the part where they're. I mean, I remember the part where we were talking about me throwing, or I was like, they're gonna throw the construction workers off the top of the building like that WWE video game. I definitely remember talking about that, but I don't remember them being at the same time. Construction workers are gonna be flying. People better not be below.
I think this was announced last night, I believe. Right after following the show.
Yeah, I must have missed that at the same time. And the reason I asked if it was going to be 2 separate things where you could click which one you wanted to watch, because I kind of wonder if that's a good test of like what people are really into. Because Becky was one of their most overall like top superstars. So do you want to see like which match people are more into, the female wrestling or the male wrestling kind of thing? But if they're just doing them at the same time, then everyone's going to miss everything, and then afterwards everybody's going to be like, what the fuck was that? More than likely.
Real quick, I'm going to bring up the male and female Money in the Bank.
The Titan Tower.
Well, I just want to find out exactly who's going to be in the match, like so far, for men and women. No, that's not it. Okay, so we have for the matches for the women, Asuka, Shayna Baszler, Nia Jax, Dana Brooke, Lacey Evans, Carmella, and then Daniel Bryan, Rey Mysterio, Aleister Black, and Otis, and then whoever wins this gauntlet match on Monday, whether it be Apollo Crews defying the odds or AJ Styles stepping in, some shit like that's going to happen. Or maybe it'll be Buddy Murphy. Maybe it'll be all the people that lost previously. I have no idea. But out of the women's, Asuka, Shayna, Nia, Dana, Lacey Evans, Carmella, who do you think's going to win? I wish it would be Asuka, but I feel like it's going to be either Lacey Evans or Nia Jax. I'm going to push towards Lacey Evans because I like her more, obviously.
I'm going to go with my Kofi Kingston pick of this match and go Dana Brooks.
That would be awesome. I would love that, man.
But because I always pick the person that's not going to win, but it's going to be somewhat fun in the match, just like Kofi for forever until he actually did win. I just kept picking Kofi for Rumble, Money in the Bank. Dana Brooke is my new. She's going to be tossed in these. I'm picking Dana Brooke. But like actual, probably going to win Shayna Baszler. And then hopefully they'll do the right thing where she just straight challenges Becky. She's like, you didn't actually beat me. And then puts like a stip on the match or something. Like a submission match or something. That'd be kind of cool, right?
Absolutely. And then we have Daniel Bryan, Ray, Aleister Black, King Corbin, Otis, and to be announced. So with not knowing that last person, if I'm just going based on this, I don't see Ray or Daniel because they're the vets and they don't really need it. Daniel Bryan's already, he's already won a fucking Money in the Bank. But I would love, as long as it's not fucking Baron Corbin, I would love either Aleister Black or Otis to somehow get this fucking thing. Aleister Black over Otis, but still if Otis won, I'd smile at the end of it as well. Who do you think is going to win the men's? Or maybe you can throw in, you think AJ Styles is going to win because he's going to be the last person winning that title.
I think it's going to be AJ or Kevin Owens. It just depends on who they sub in there. I still think it's too early to bring back AJ after this, but if they bring it back with a cool gimmick and he's like you don't really know who AJ is and he wins, you can play both sides of the field. I feel like the Money in the Bank or at least for the male roster is better suited to a heel. It's a very heel move to cash that shit in on somebody, right?
Yeah.
And at least with the women's, with Shayna being there, you can at least go, well, Shayna is a shoot badass, so she would just shoot badass challenge somebody, but you don't really have that to me in the men's Money in the Bank. Right, versus Drew McIntyre, who just kicked fucking Lesnar's head off or whatever. What I don't want to see out of all this is Lesnar show up on Monday and then win Money in the Bank and then challenge McIntyre.
Yeah, me neither.
Which is a fucking possibility.
All right, so let's go down the rest of this card just real quick, and we'll go into it because we'll probably have some more matches next week. But we got Braun Strowman against Bray Wyatt for the Universal Championship. Bray's getting that back, isn't he? What do you think?
I don't think so.
You think Braun's going to win?
I feel like he has to. I feel like you need more mind games.
You got to draw this out. You fucking made your bed. You got to lie in it.
You can't just have Bray just straight win it back right off the bat. I mean, unless there's time travel and alternate realities involved in which Bray takes a loss that doesn't actually exist in wrestling. I guess then he could technically lose the title, like John Cena technically lost that match. I don't know.
I could see that. All right, Bayley going against Tamina for the women's championship match. Bayley's going to retain that, isn't she?
Yeah. No, Bayley's just going to. Yes, Bayley is going to win, but maybe her and Sasha have a miscommunication, and she somehow wins still. Even after the miscommunication. But if you wanted to do something really cool, and it would be a good look for Tamina, because, like, say what you will about Tamina, I think she's, like, pretty decent in the ring or whatever. She's been there a long time, and obviously, if there was a miscommunication and Tamina won the title, that would be a huge surprise, right?
Yeah,
a good way to spark your feud and maybe do something different with your title. I don't think that's going to happen. I think like miscommunication, somehow Bayley still gets a win, probably cheating, like a trunks or legs on the rope or whatever kind of thing.
All right, and then we have Drew McIntyre, Seth Rollins. I'm going to Drew McIntyre, but I hope this is actually one of the better wrestling matches for the WWE Championship. You got Drew retaining?
I have Drew retaining, and this should be the match of the night. Seth has no excuse on this one. He can definitely work with Drew. They work very similar paced matches. It's very much a Triple H versus Triple H versus Seth Rollins, which was a pretty good match. But Drew McIntyre is like 15 years younger than Triple H, so this match should be really fucking good. And
do you think
if it's not good? And Seth Rollins comes out and blames the fans.
Do you think the Disciple will try to get involved, Buddy Murphy?
Oh, I thought you meant the Disciple from WCW. I was like, I hope not. Like,
and Leslie
the Barber Beefcake is going to show up. I mean, maybe, but you can't take the belt off Drew McIntyre. So he's just gonna. I mean, it doesn't matter who gets involved. He's just going to be like fucking. Yeah, he's just going to be Claymore kicking the fuck out of people until, like, Brock shows back up, basically. Or you have someone win Money in the Bank.
All right, the last match for the Smackdown Tag Team Championships. The New Day, the champs, Big E and Kofi, against Miz and Morrison, the Forgotten Sons, and the Lucha House Party. Who do you think is going to win this? I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go New Day retains unless they put it on the Forgotten Sons for some reason.
I'm just gonna say Forgotten Sons because obviously they're getting a push for no reason out of nowhere. So. Also, they just love. Like, I just don't get it. But you know what? They might as well get it. I mean, the Viking Raiders have been tag champions, like Forgotten Sons. Why not?
I forgot about the Viking Raiders. All right, let's go on to our main topic today, Chris. For the little amount of time that we have, I wanted to do a nice. What were you gonna say?
I said, what little amount? We have all the time you want, buddy.
Well, yeah, we're not on a timer anymore. That's for damn sure. But I definitely think there's a lot of similarities that can be said about both Macho Man Randy Savage and what he did for wrestling in his career to Eddie Guerrero and what he did for wrestling throughout his career. Just my opening statement. I mean, you have two men that exuded passion, were perfectionists. Both of them could be a little bit intense as an individual outside of wrestling because they took wrestling extremely seriously. Both of them had no problem doing the JOB or whatever was supposed to progress the wrestling itself. Neither of them thought they'd ever be a world heavyweight champion due to their size. Both of them innovated so many people within the wrestling industry and were just beloved by wrestlers and two pillars of their era. Randy Savage obviously being whether you call it the golden age, the rock and wrestling, the Hulkamania era, the beginning of WWF when it first started. Macho, I would say, is up there with Piper, obviously Hogan, as pillars of that time period, the necessary people that made wrestling big. I would say Macho Man's on there. I'll be nice and throw Warrior in there because I would be lying if I were to say he wasn't popular and a part of that as well. And then Eddie during the Ruthless Aggression era, along with people like Kurt Angle and up-and-comers like Randy Orton and Batista and John Cena, and working with JBL and a lot of the other great wrestlers. They both have matches that people study still to this day. They both were great as baby faces, great as heels. Both were known for having female valets that were very famous within it. So I guess I'll let you start, Chris. You can kind of just go into the direction of comparing the two, and then we'll kind of go into subcategories. Them when they first started getting into the industry, and then going from there, basically going over promos, going over different aspects, in-ring wrestling style. I know that two of these are your favorite. Both of them would definitely be in my top 10 as far as wrestlers. They're probably the two of the most beloved wrestlers within wrestling, and I think that Eddie could have been as big as in the world of wrestling as Macho Man Randy Savage if he didn't inevitably, unfortunately, pass away. Also, both of them had tragic endings, but we'll get into that. What do you want to say, or what do you have to say about Macho Man Randy Savage comparing to Eddie Guerrero?
So I'll start it out by both saying one thing that should be noted is there's both a family lineage there. You have the Guerreros and you have the Pothos, right? Which is interesting in itself. Like this is, not to the same extent as like the Rock's family or the Samoan lineage of wrestling, but I'm just pointing out that there's definitely some comparisons there. I will say Macho Man kind of was a top guy as soon as he came to WWF, whereas Eddie Guerrero was a top guy in the cruiserweight division, and WCW just kind of pinned guys there for a long period of time. You could go out and have the best match of the entire night, but you were still stuck right there on the middle of the card. And it wasn't until and I'm not saying anything negative about Eddie because I fucking love Eddie Guerrero. As everyone who's listened to the show knows, I love Eddie Guerrero. But I think the relationship that he had with China, and that feud that he had with China, and they turned heel, and they turned like I lie, cheat, still Eddie Guerrero.
made that character, and then he somehow turned it babyface because everyone just wanted to see Eddie win. Whereas Macho Man was kind of the opposite of being like this ultra manly man who may beat his wife, Miss Elizabeth, but you're not quite sure. And is it his girlfriend or is it his manager? And he's always over the top all of the time. There's so many similarities to their characters in a lot of different ways. And if we start going into just like breaking down their in-ring work, it's going to be very hard to do because they're different, but there's still a lot of similarities. Macho Man, I think, is probably one of the best. I think DDP's even said this. Macho Man he could either sit down and lay out an entire match for you spot to spot, like he did with Ricky the Dragon Steamboat at WrestleMania 3, or he could just call it in the ring. And Eddie Guerrero, I'm pretty sure, just called everything in the ring. From like all the accounts I've heard of, at least with Eddie Guerrero, is kind of just a old school call it in the ring. This is the thing. Eddie Guerrero, to me, is an innovator. He was a guy that was stuck in the cruiserweight division. I mean, like when you look at the snap suplexes, people still do that to this day. The frog splash, which he wasn't the only person doing the frog splash, but I think Eddie's frog splash in WCW was fucking phenomenal. I think the thing about Eddie that would maybe put him a little bit below Macho Man for me is promos. And I thought Eddie was a good promo, but Macho Man, once again, probably one of the best promos of all time. And then he also had one of the greatest matches of all time. The other thing is there's really great matches. Eddie Guerrero had a ton of great matches, and maybe if you put them side by side and was like, who had more better matches, I'd probably be like Eddie Guerrero had more better matches, but Macho Man had one of the best matches of all time.
Yep, and we'll get to a match I think is not as comparable, but you can say influential people taking from a match. Eddie had one as well. I think Randy and Ricky are pretty much one of the biggest matches of all time. But let's go over the beginning for both guys. Randy Savage, Randy Poffo, he was actually supposed to become a baseball player. He lived in Cincinnati, or he lived in Columbus, Ohio, I should say. He was trying to play for Cincinnati. Nagging injuries kind of kept him out from going to the major leagues, but people said that he was a phenom. Baseball players of that time period that worked with him either in college or high school or the minor leagues just said that he was incredible. So he decided that he would go to his first love and try to put on some muscle and become a professional wrestler like his father, Angelo Poffo, with his brother also being a part of the same wrestling organization that their dad had, International Championship Wrestling, which was on cable for a lot of different places and competed mainly with Jerry Lawler and Jarrett's Memphis Wrestling, which would end up having the two of them have their two champions, Savage and Lawler, fight for it. And when you go to Eddie was obviously part of the Guerrero family. His father, another second generation, Gory Guerrero, innovative as hell. He had a brother much older than him, actually, with Chavo Guerrero Sr., and he was actually born around the same time, a little bit older than his nephew, Chavo Jr., and then his brother being Hector Guerrero. So he was part of a huge family from El Paso, Texas, that traveled, throughout the various territories in Texas. And sorry, but I can hear a lot of typing, just FYI. Through Texas, and then obviously AAA and CMLL, and became kind of a pillar for that, an up-and-comer. And this is before either of them became major or big, deciding to have feuds. You would have Eddie traveled to Japan after that, become the whatchamacallit, the Black Tiger, and have some amazing matches with Chris Benoit, some amazing matches with Dean Malenko, which would travel from ECW to WCW, while Randy had some amazing matches with Adrian Street and Jerry Lawler, and then would finally start cutting himself into the WWE. Both of them different careers. Both of them were second-generation wrestlers. Both of them had intense wrestling matches with guys that they would become, friends with Macho and Lawler, and obviously with Benoit and Dean Malenko with Eddie. But they were known for being able to go out there, Chris, and perform. And Macho didn't really become his character until later on. He was very skinny. He was called the Spider at first, which is actually a reference that's the reason why Sam Raimi made Bonesaw McGraw and had Macho Man play him, is because when he first started wrestling, he was a skinnier dude and called himself the Spider. Just a little extra trivia out there for you. And then he put on muscle and tried to. They both had that concept of, and they would get bigger and bigger body-wise throughout their career, but where they thought they were the odd man out because they were the smaller guy. And I believe Eddie was 5'9", 5'10", maybe 5'8", between 5'8" and 5'10", and Macho Man was I think he was like 6 foot 6'1". So they always had that issue being in the land of the giants, but they made do, and their personalities made them larger than life. Any comments about the early days of both these guys?
So for Macho Man, the early days of me watching Macho Man, outside of the little bit of the Poffo territory I watched, which Lanny and obviously Randy went over quite a bit, is WWF. So the early days of Macho Man coming in, being the hottest free agent, and seeing all of these different, and he's booked so perfectly, by the way, having all of the different, like Bobby Heenan, like every manager they had, and this is kind of a thing that relates back to real sports, all of these different managers wanting this top prospect that's the Macho Man Randy Savage, right? This crazy athlete, this freakish athlete that played baseball or whatever. They booked that so perfectly. That's probably my earliest memory of Macho Man, as far as like dating back in my mind. For Eddie Guerrero, the first time I really, I guess, latched on to him would be Hog Wild, maybe 95 or 96. He had a match against Ric Flair. And I had been watching him for a while, like a long while. But if you guys ever get a chance, look up Ric Flair versus Eddie Guerrero, 96 or 95 or 96 at Hog. I think it's definitely Hog Wild, but they changed the name at some point. It became not Hog Wild because it was at Sturgis. They called it something else after the fact. But anyways, you'll be able to find it. Trust me. It's a 20-minute match in the middle of a show that ended up with, like, I think the Giant winning the title against NWO or something no one gave a shit about, but the Ric Flair Eddie Guerrero match stole the show, and from my childhood that kind of lit my eyes up. But I just remember, as far as like Macho Man early in my childhood and things that I loved, just renting that WrestleMania. Was it WrestleMania 3 DVD, or not DVD, VHS back then, over and over and over. And my parents are like, "Are you still watching this?" I'm like, "Yeah, well, maybe Macho Man will win this time." I was a huge Macho Man mark. I had a Macho Man wrestling buddy. I also had an Ultimate Warrior wrestling buddy, to be fair, but I had both wrestling buddies, my two favorites of all time back in that time period, up until there wasn't any WCW wrestling buddies, so it wasn't very fair. But those two were my wrestling buddies until they released the WCW Sting wrestling buddy, and then game over.
Was the coolest. Yeah, and oh god, both guys, they exuded professionalism. They took the industry very, very seriously. They both wanted to be the best wrestler or at least they cared more about, I think, Chris. They loved, them getting their championship matches are great memories. But like I said, Macho Man had a saying that Bruce Pritchard always says: you win them 1, 2, 3 in the wing, you lose them 1, 2, 3. It was more about getting the storyline down and having great matches to him that he was passionate about. And those matches, much like Eddie, Randy would either, like you said, he would either draw everything out until there was 99 lines that he gave to Ricky Steamboat of every fucking detail of the match they were going to have. Or, you would have Eddie who would try to, call it, or if he expected you to call it, he expected you to be able to call it correctly. And put on, I think that they were so down on themselves for minor things. Their passion was, both of them, especially for their eras, just second to none. Their matchship qualities, they were both innovators. I mean, Savage, what him and Steamboat did at WrestleMania was so innovative and put on such an amazing, it changed things, man. I mean, Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart, Owen Hart, so many wrestlers watched that and said that is something to emulate. And I think that a lot of wrestling nowadays, especially based more with a lot of Mexican or, luchador influence, Halloween Havoc 1997, Rey Mysterio against Eddie Guerrero, that blew a lot of people, away. Your AJ Styles, the next generation of wrestlers. So they both had that type of innovation. They both had classic matches. They both had a very, very emotional moments in wrestling. Macho Man getting his ass kicked by Sherry after the match that he lost against Dusty, and then Elizabeth coming through the crowd and them embracing, and Bobby Heenan and everything that him and whatchamacallit, everything that him and Gorilla Monsoon said about they love each other. And then before, when he proposed to her and she said, "Oh yeah," that's a moment that I remember being emotional to wrestling as a kid, and then later as an adult when Eddie beat Brock Lesnar. And then Eddie went on, and that moment at WrestleMania after he beat Kurt Angle for the, retained the title, and Chris beat Triple H and Shawn, and they had that moment in the ring. They just knew how to pull on the heartstrings. They were just perfect packages, I think, for their era when it comes to in-ring ability, mic ability, innovation, just so many different things, the passion they exuded, and also, like I said, being intense individuals in real life, being so hard on themselves that they didn't have a good match, or if they perceive themselves not to have a good match. I think that they had a lot of that in common.
Yeah, and I agree with you 100% on that. There's a lot of commonality between these two wrestlers, even though if you just look at straight style, maybe not so much. But there's definitely things that you can draw. And I think you pointed out something that I would say, which is when Randy and Ricky were doing the stuff in WWF, no one else was doing it. When Eddie was doing this with Dean Malenko and Chris Jericho and Rey Mysterio, and they were doing that week after week after week on live TV, it kind of was a game changer in a lot of ways, as far as what I would say WCW in general was a game changer as far as what you expect out of a match, spot wise, and what a good opening match should be and should be. I mean, when you look at that, like the names I just named off, is Randy had he just had Ricky the Dragon to work with. So he had one of those, and then later down the line, I think he had some Rick Rude matches and Mr. Perfect match. So I'm trying to think of good. I mean, there's a lot of great, Randy Savage matches, but if I'm trying to put their bodies of work side by side, and it's really, really hard, because then you factor in Randy's promo and how much he meant, being basically the anti-Hogan for people that were tired of Hogan. It's just it's really, really crazy. But I do remember when Eddie finally won the WWF title, it gave me the same feeling as when Shawn won it in the 63-minute Iron Man match, where with JR's classic call of the boyhood dream has come true. It was that same kind of feeling where you're like, yes, finally this guy's getting appreciated for what he did. And this one is always going to be very difficult for me, because I love Eddie so much, and I love Macho Man so much. But I mean, I guess at the end of the day, what are we trying to do? Rate one higher than the other?
No, not so much. I mean, we if it comes down to it, I guess right now we can do some comparisons, because I think that even though they were both excellent on certain things, one might have been better than the other. For when it comes down to in-ring ability, Eddie Guerrero is, I mean, look, here's the thing. You can go ask Seth Rollins who's more influential towards his style between Savage and between Guerrero, and he might actually have a hard problem, but he's probably going to say Guerrero. But if you went to wrestlers previous to that, like I was saying, like a Shawn Michaels, he's going to say, who influenced him would be Ricky Morton, would be Randy Savage, would be Ric Flair, mostly because, Dynamite Kid, fucking Ricky Morton, Ricky Steamboat, and Macho Man were going off the top ropes. They were doing things that no one was doing, so they were innovators in that concept. Eddie took it up a notch because he brought Japanese-trained stuff. He had American wrestling in his background, and he obviously had Lucha Libre. And when they exploded that, now we are normalized to that. But I think both those wrestlers, their in-ring styles definitely proved to be innovative and to also be influential. But the difference, I think, is that Eddie specifically was an incredible. He was incredible when it came to submission work. He was incredible working as a heel. He was incredible doing heel shit as a babyface. Incredible being a sympathetic babyface when it came to selling. The high flying, obviously both of them had finishers that were high flying moves at the end of it, the frog splash versus the diving elbow. But Eddie was, I think, a notch better in ring. But when it came to Macho Man, he influenced outside of his in-ring work. When it came to his promos and his personality and, how he handled the business, and also really being very similar to that version of himself and not changing, at least in front of people, excluded by a couple people like, Ted DiBiase or his brother or good friends of his. Macho Man was always very intense, except for he just, didn't have as much aggression. But when you go to their promos, Eddie could tell a fucking great promo, man. He was a good heel promo, great babyface promo. But Macho Man has more well-known, the cup of coffee, the creamer, cream of the crop, all that stuff. Either one of them, you could sit students down to watch their promos, and they'll get great stuff from it. I think Macho might have been, when it comes to a character, a little bit over Eddie. I mean, he had the pomp and circumstance. He had the amazing robes. He had all the colorfulness and all the great promos outside of it. But he got in the ring. He was awesome. I mean, think about some of the great spots that Macho did, whether it be putting his knee in someone's back and throwing him to the outside, going for a fucking double axe handle, coming down like a speed missile, or, grabbing his head, running over to jump over the ropes, strangle the guy real quick, the elbow drop, so many great stuff. And kind of different when it came to heels between the two. Like, Eddie liked to do it like Ric Flair did it, He liked low blows. He would, I loved how he threw it a chair to the other person, would jump on the ground. Macho Man liked to do he would pull a powder. He would always get out of the ring. He'd bitch in. He'd be grabbing Liz, putting her somewhere else just to fucking waste time when he was a heel. So they were different, but they were still great. Like I'm saying before I pass it to you, you can have wrestlers in NXT study their promo style, and they'll both get great stuff from it. And you can have them study their in-ring style. I just think that Eddie was better overall in ring, and Randy was a better overall character, even though they were both great regardless, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that I have to give Macho Man the notch in definitely for promos, and mostly because what worked for Eddie was just what worked for Ric Flair, but with a different flavor. Whereas no one was like Macho Man. Macho Man, completely original. Like, and you could even go back and say Ric Flair is a little bit of Gorgeous George and Muhammad Ali, whatever. We can date all that back. We all know that story, right? No one was Macho Man. As far as like getting on the mic, on balance, off balance, it doesn't matter. I'm better than you. But in ring, I would agree with you. Like consistency and level of matches, I would have to go Eddie Guerrero. The only difference would be that Macho Man was working the WWE schedule back in the day, where you worked 3 dates a week, and you're the Intercontinental title holder, and he was wrestling full matches, whereas Hogan did like 5 moves as the top guy. So there's a little bit of debate there. And then we never really got the Macho Man Ric Flair match we deserved. Whereas there's a couple. I mean, even 2003 Ric Flair Eddie Guerrero is pretty good. But that 96 Hog Wild Ric Flair Eddie Guerrero, fucking phenomenal. I mean, Eddie, I would say better worker, but it's one of those things that's so hard to judge because if you remember Macho Man's time, there's certain territories where you just couldn't jump off the top rope. Like, there's certain shit you just couldn't do. Like, WCW for a while with Bill Watts. Like, if you jumped off the top rope, that's disqualification. So, it's just so hard to judge. And I will say this about Macho Man. If you look at, like, his match with DDP, and I think DDP's talked about this, like, really going that extra level to put somebody over, and being this character and being okay with whatever that character takes is something that Macho Man should be proud of, and that's the reason why he's one of the greatest of all time. Plus, there's something about him pointing to that fucking sky and hitting that elbow drop. It's just like a magical. It's like when Goku turned Super Saiyan. Basically, if Macho Man points to that fucking sky, you already know what it is. It's already done. You might as well count 3 before
do you think that Eddie and Randy share that in common, where I don't think it was much about, I mean, if they could win a world heavyweight title, that would be great, but it was more about if they got to put someone over or have great matches or build themselves as characters, like that was first and foremost their passion when it came to wrestling.
I don't think that was Macho Man's outset. I think he wanted to be the top guy, but there was always Hogan.
The bastard.
It is way. But with Eddie, you get the different story arc of we got to see him crawl, and wrestling had changed and the fans have changed to really want to see that guy win the title. So when he finally did win the title, it was an incredible moment. I mean, like, and it's the same thing with Macho Man. I mean, he finally.
Yeah, I was gonna say WrestleMania 3, man. You know, him winning the tournament.
Oh, was that 5 where he won the?
Oh, was it 5? I don't remember.
And also
he won the title.
Also, it was a vacant title, though. You know what I mean? And and that's considered a bad WrestleMania in general. And there weren't great Macho Man matches.
Why? The only thing we didn't get him and Steamboat fucking again because they were dumb and didn't do it.
It's like they should have. Yeah, the last match should have been him and Steamboat for forever until they just until now. Yeah, like I think that I think that was 5. I'm not 100% sure without googling it, but I'm pretty sure they did that. But the whole thing was like he didn't really win the title. The title was vacant, so then Hogan came back, right? Or whoever came back. The whole thing was like Macho Man's entire career, unfortunately, in WWF was a placeholder, which is like his best stuff. He's great in WCW. He did a lot of work. He had a lot of really good matches. But like his best shit
was being an Intercontinental Champion, putting his body on the line while Hogan just dropped the leg.
Yeah, it's true.
I mean, and there's nothing you can do about that. And you could say the same thing about Eddie Guerrero. Like, Eddie Guerrero was buried under Hogan and NWO, and then he went to WWF, and guess what? There's The Rock, there's Austin, there's Austin, there's Triple H,
who all of a sudden comes out. Yeah.
Which I think that was like, for me as a wrestling fan, seeing Eddie Guerrero get that title was like a huge deal for me, because it was like, I've watched this guy specifically for me because, like, I love Macho Man, and I've backdated all the Macho Man shit, right? So I caught Macho Man in the early 90s. This is more WCW Macho Man, because like I'm 31, right? So you look at it, like 88, like that's kind of the tail end of Macho Man. He's starting to do commentary in WWF when I was born. But I still love that stuff. But my Macho Superstars. Yeah, so my Macho Man is WCW, and he did some great stuff there. And I remember him slapping my hand, him and Sting, Saturday night, Saturday night main event or whatever, Georgia Mountain Center, Georgia Civic Center, Gainesville, Georgia. That's probably where AJ Styles learned to wrestle. I'm just kidding. So I remember more of that, whereas like Eddie Guerrero, because I grew up with Eddie Guerrero, it was just when he won that title, it was just like kind of something special. Just like the same thing when Shawn won the title, because I was like 7 or 8 when Shawn won the title, right? So I remember that being so special. Also, I just hated Bret Hart for some reason.
I did back then too. I did back then too. You're such a douche.
I don't know why. Yeah, so I mean, it had that feeling to me. Like, I'll never, like I said, the call with JR was like the boyhood dream has come true. Eddie Guerrero, Chris Benoit getting those titles and having that moment in the ring and seeing two of my WCW guys that I rooted for this company. I knew they weren't going to win. They got those titles. Just such a huge deal for me. It doesn't mean one's better than the other. If it's me personally and I had to like pick one, like if you had to pick one to never exist again, I guess. I mean, it's almost impossible not to say Macho Man, unfortunately.
Well, let's still go kind of a couple things in between the two of them, a little bit of comparison. In ring, we talked about this. You have the frog splash versus the elbow drop. You have a lot of times he would do some type of crazy ass crossbody to the outside. Macho Man liked to do a double axe handle to the outside. Randy, I kind of went over his moves. Then you have the mannerisms between the two of them. You have Eddie shaking his chest at the beginning, doing the tranquilo out in the corner just to piss off people. And Macho Man with all of his pop and circumstance, spinning to the sky and stuff and doing his twirls. Which one
Eddie also
caught your eye more?
Eddie also did the razor thing where you run, because in WCW you had like the greased mullet. And later on, he still did too. But he would run his hand through the grease or whatever and flick it on his opponent, Razor Ramon style.
Oh yeah.
Which obviously he took from Steiner a little bit. I thought that's like NATO spitting in a guy's face to some extent. I always thought that was kind of dope.
That's the next question I wanted to ask you. What did you like them? What did you prefer them more as, heel or baby? Because they were both good at both. I mean, they both started off as baby faces in their earlier careers. They both developed themselves as heels later on, and Eddie just was a mean dickhead heel, especially some of the shit that he put Chavo through on Nitro just to be that asshole, arrogant. But then you have the Macho King, who, one of our favorite wrestlers, you made us hate him so much and doing every heel tactic. But then they could switch back to being babyface, and just be so, like, you love them. And they would do heelish shit even as baby faces, but you still like them. And I don't know. I feel like when it comes down to it, I prefer both of them as baby faces, but they were two amazing heels as well,
I mean, I prefer Macho Man as a heel because when he came in, he was a heel with Miss Elizabeth, and I love that story arc of their relationship, which eventually did build to him being a babyface and becoming a good guy and getting bit by Jake the Snake, Robert Snake, or whatever. But that's way down the road. But coming into the WWE when all those managers were bidding for him, and he ended up with Miss Elizabeth and him chasing her around the ring and having those great matches with Steamboat, with George the Animal still chasing after him. That's my prototypical Macho Man. And then as a kid, he came in for a little bit, then NWO showed up, and he was NWO Macho Man. So for me, Macho Man's always been, at least to me, just because of how much I watched Macho Man, was always a better heel. Just because I didn't get to really experience the mega powers, he just turned heel anyway, so it didn't really. Macho Man's babyface.
You got the lust in your eyes, Hogan.
Yeah, Macho Man's runs as babyface is kind of short, right? Whereas, like, I don't know, Eddie getting the title, taking the Ric Flair thing and doing what Ric Flair did too, like, this is not baffling. Like, Ric Flair did the same thing. He's able to, obviously a heel, but I'll cheat and act confused about it, and then people will think I'm a babyface because this guy's an asshole, kind of thing. He just basically did Dusty. Dusty would do the same thing.
Whereas Macho Man would pull your ass out, wait for the ref to not be looking, bash your head against the fucking thing, just start beating the shit out of you outside, use whatever he could, and then threw you inside like it was nothing. Like, I love Macho Man, Macho Madness era, when he was still kind of a baby face, within the NWO sort of, but he would just annihilate motherfuckers. Good shit.
Yeah, and Eddie would do that too when he was like a straight heel, but when he was doing the lie, I cheat, and steal thing, it became something very different that was kind of unique, which reminded me of like Dusty Rhodes, because Ric Flair would cheat. He would cheat, and the ref wouldn't see it, and he wouldn't see it. And then you'd finally get Dusty Rhodes giving him the one-up cheat. You know what I mean? Like the gouge to the eye, and then looking at the ref like, hey, what happened? Kind of thing.
Yeah, love it.
And that's very much where he went as a babyface. And like I said, like the transition from God, what the hell, the Radicals to the relationship with China to I'm just a mid-card guy to him winning the fucking title with Lie, Cheat, and Steal, riding out in the lowriders. It's just such a higher arc than, like, I feel like Macho Man just kind of came in and he was a guy. Yeah. Immediately, because he was just that fucking good. And Eddie Guerrero was that fucking good, but
took him a little bit longer.
It took him so much longer. So the pinnacle of the career, seeing that babyface win the title belt and the actual tears, which, like, that's the pinnacle, right? Winning the WWF title belt, like, that's the fucking pinnacle. Or at least at that time, maybe not now. I guess it depends on who you are.
And beating Brock Lesnar.
Yeah.
And then retaining to fucking Kurt Angle. All right, let me ask you. This is another thing. Let's compare entrances and let's compare the women involved in their life. Entrances. Macho Man Randy Savage. He looked immaculate. The robes, the costumes, the colors. It's like he was a sensory overload just from everything. His voice, his look, everything. Now, he came out, and we've kind of talked about it, to Pop and Circumstance, which worked for him, but was a little bit boring. But then he also had his valet, whether that be Liz or whether that be Sherry. Eddie, I would say, even though he didn't have that prestigious of an entrance, the Lie, Cheat, Steal, him on the lowrider coming out, getting everyone fucking into it. Both of them knew how to start off a match with their entrances, but both of them also got the audience into it immediately going into it. I preferred Eddie when it came to his music and his entrance itself, but I loved the look of Savage. He looked immaculate. I don't think anyone really in wrestling has, maybe Flair, but even Macho Man might have been a little bit more flamboyant with his colors. And then, like I said, the ladies involved, obviously both of them. Eddie, his wife, she unfortunately until afterwards became a superstar within wrestling and a great female heel, and commissioner for whatever. But she's still a huge established part of wrestling. When you came out with China, that was very popular. Everyone liked the Mamacita, the Latino heat, until he screwed up, obviously, and that went to shame. But he did have her as a valet. And then, obviously, with Macho Man, his wife Liz, which didn't work out later on, unfortunately, with their relationship. But that was a very tight package. And when he was a heel, Sensational Sherry was just as important, I think, for that version, the Macho King, as Liz was for Macho Man Randy Savage. So, entrances and the ladies involved. What do you think, Chris?
Macho Man and Macho Man. Macho Man's entrance, I think, is just so grand. I love Pomp and Circumstance. I mean, that's what Gorgeous George came out to. It's the robe, the whole celebration of what it is. It makes you pay attention to it. Same thing as Ric Flair. Like Ric Flair, the song is very boring. It's more about the fact that this cocky asshole is coming out to this song with the robe and the song and the dance. Whereas, at the time where Eddie did the car, the lowrider, Undertaker's also riding around the ring in a motorcycle to roll in, and then American Badass. So it lost a little bit of luster if you were watching during that time period, I guess. Even though I do love that version of Eddie, especially when Chavo was with him for a little bit, they just both rode in the lowrider. Man, so tough. As far as female counterparts, I would say, Miss Elizabeth's undeniable, right? I love Sensational Sherry. She's great. If I had to pick one manager, and Vicky is great too. I don't want to say anything bad about Vicky. I liked Vicky. I know a lot of people just hated the excuse me thing where she was like, excuse me, for 8 years.
Wasn't that the point?
That's kind of the point. She got heat, right? But Miss Elizabeth, they got married on TV and everybody, just wanted to see Macho Man open a present, and there's Jake the Snake's Cobra. It's the best. It's literally the best. Macho Man got bit by a cobra on live TV day.
Yeah, I don't think Eddie ever had to deal with that type of situation. By the way, if you guys want to hear it, go look up Jake the Snake explaining this on Joe Rogan. And I believe him. It's his word against whoever, but that was actually Savage's idea. You got a snake, huh? Well, if it's to venomize, why don't we try to get it to bite me on TV? And it went from that to Macho Man interrogating Jake right beforehand, and Jake being like, dude, this is your idea. What are you talking about? And wanting the snake to bite Jake beforehand and waiting to see if Jake died in the locker room to make sure. And then in the ring, when they do that thing.
Here's the thing. Was that actually Randy Savage, or was that just Macho Man's character? To add the layer of complication to the entire thing.
Oh yeah. And then, so he paintbrushed the shit out of the snake, pissed it off, and it latched down so much that they had to keep on, getting people to come down and try to get the snake off of Savage. So just craziness. All right, so this is kind of the last one. Let's go over between these two, their opponents. Great, famous opponents. I would say with Savage, you got to note Adrian Street early on. Him and Piper, before WWE, used to beat the living hell out of each other. Him and Lawler had basically a loser leaves town match between their two territories for supremacy of the number one spot on television. Obviously, Hulk Hogan. Tito Santana, he got the IC title from. George the Animal Steel. Ricky Steamboat. Ric Flair in both WWE and in WCW. Jake the Snake Roberts. Diamond Dallas Page. Lex Luger. Then we look at Eddie and the people that he went against, between Chavo obviously was someone back and forth with him. Of course, my thing's freezing now. Of course. I mean, that makes sense. Chavo was someone that they did. He had a little stint, I would say, with the Four Horsemen at first. Are you guys really going to fuck up right now when I'm trying to finish my goddamn show?
Yeah, I got you, man. We're talking about some Eddie Guerrero matches. Eddie Guerrero versus Edge, no DQ match, Smackdown, September.
It's on this list. I wish I fucking just Snapchatted the list. Okay, actually, I have it. Sorry about that, guys. All right, Chavo, Chris Jericho in WCW, Edge, like you just said, Rob Van Dam, Brock Lesnar, Batista, two guys that he over the odds. One of his biggest, JBL, Rey Mysterio, is on and off feud with him, and then Kurt Angle. I mean, those are two amazing lists of awesome wrestlers. And if you go back with both of them, since they were who they were, outside of Randy Savage with Hogan, I never was a fan of that match at WrestleMania. I thought it was just Hogan being Hogan and not really letting Savage get a lot of offense. But other than that, most of these matches and these pair-ups were fucking incredible, and they worked with some of the best of their eras. Who do you think had the better opponents, personally?
Oh, that's so tough. Eddie Guerrero had the better opponents. As far as, like, people that Eddie faced, I mean, Rey Mysterio, Brock Lesnar, Dean Malenko, Edge, Kurt Angle. I actually kind of feel bad now looking at this list of also fucking great wrestlers versus what Macho Man had to deal with. Like, didn't he wrestle Van Hammer when he came to WCW? Like,
they both. That's another thing that they both have in common. There's a chunk in time before Macho Man got injured and came back even more jacked with Gorgeous George and barely wrestled. Where they just kind of had him helping talent out, and when Eddie came back after him getting fired and before SmackDown became big, they had him kind of doing the same fucking thing, just on on idle mode,
Now, I'm going to give some props to Randy Savage because he did work with, I just named off a bunch of really great, phenomenal fucking wrestlers. Edge, Dean Malenko, Rey Mysterio, Chris Jericho, etc. Randy did a lot if you take away the Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, or Ricky Dragon if you take away Steamboat, right, and you go look at WCW, he had a match with a guy that no one thought was ever going to be anyone, named DDP. That match turned out pretty good. He had matches with Sting, he had matches with Flair, he had matches with Hogan. Maybe not to the same level as what Eddie was doing, but yeah, as far as like good opponents and good matches, they both had good matches. Eddie just had fucking phenomenal matches.
I will say, for your DDP comparison, John Cena doesn't think that he would have been able to be jump-started with his career if it wasn't for Eddie Guerrero and their parking lot brawl match, that he was pivotal in helping him get to where he needed to get.
Kurt Angle somewhere chanting John Cena sucks right now. It's like, John Cena sucks. No.
You suck.
That is a great match, that parking lot brawl. I kind of forgot about that. But yeah, no, that's a really good one too. Shit.
And tragically, we never got to see the two guys wrestle each other. There was one match, a tag team, back before the NWO and WCW, where Savage tagged with Ric Flair when they were feuding. Flair beat the crap out of him before that, and Anderson was tagging with Eddie Guerrero, and they hated Eddie Guerrero. So both guys, basically, it was a way for Arn and and Flair to take it out on two guys they weren't getting along with. And they were in the ring for a very small amount of time, but it would have been great to see the two of them go at it later on in WCW before Savage got hurt. And I think that kind of brings us towards the kind of end of this conversation and a little bit of the sadder part, but we'll bring it around and make it happy, is that both guys, you know, because of the amount of they wanted to be bigger. I think that really is what it came down to. And I think that steroids, a lot of that type of stuff, them on the road all the time, unfortunately, inevitably caught up with both guys. Eddie would pass away in his sleep in a hotel found by Chavo. We kind of went over that recently with the Benoit documentary. And Macho Man had a massive heart attack, crossed the median, and crashed driving his car. And that's the thing that sucks, is that their legacies, they were so okay, like I keep on saying, they were so okay with helping other people out, building other wrestlers. They loved the industry. They're passionate about having good matches and stuff that people would take away from. And, 97 Halloween Havoc, if you want to watch two great matches that are both on there, Rey Mysterio and Eddie, steal it at the beginning, and then Diamond Dallas Page and Macho Man Randy Savage was the real main event on that thing. But they both have ridiculous amounts of matches out there. They've influenced so many fucking wrestlers that we love and grow up with. People are going to be doing elbow drops and fucking frog splashes from now until the end of time. And really, when it comes down to it, it doesn't matter if it's Eddie Guerrero or Macho Man Randy Savage. No one will ever be like them. There can be people that can kind of imitate or put influence. But when it comes down to it, I think these guys separately, even though they're so individual and to themselves, share a lot in common, more so than someone that, you know, and no offense to Andrade, who seems to have similar look and style as Eddie, or someone like a Jay Lethal who puts on a great Macho Man performance. These guys, for their eras, were very important. And they're two of the greatest of all time overall. And that's a hard thing to say in wrestling. But yeah, that was our first, I'm going to call it, even though it wasn't really a debate, we're going to call these the Clash of Champions, where we'll go over two wrestlers and kind of just talk.
You can't call it Clash of Champions. Vince is going to put us in court. We're going to be there in the XFL trials.
Hey, pal.
The whole thing. Hey, pal. I'll call this Clash of Champions. We bought WCW, goddammit.
We'll figure out some name not to get us in legal troubles with Titan Towers and WWE, but we'll do these in the future. I actually really enjoyed this. My first one that came to mind was John Cena and Hulk Hogan, but I don't want to do that right now. I like kind of trying to think outside the box. I think Eddie and Macho are two guys to compare with each other, but they're very different as well. But it's a lot of fun. I hope that you had fun with it too, Chris.
I did. I guess before we leave, let's give everyone a match to watch. And for me, I'll give an Eddie Guerrero one. You give an Eddie Guerrero one. I'll give a Macho Man one. You give a Macho Man one. Sound okay?
Sounds good to me.
All right. So mine, Hog Wild, 1996, Ric Flair versus Eddie Guerrero, U.S. title match. Definitely a must watch. It's fucking phenomenal. It's the best. It's definitely the best thing on that show. Also, Tony Schiavone has a fake tattoo and a denim vest. So just tune in for that in general.
And what was your Randy Savage one?
Oh, damn it. So hard. Steamboat would be the one, but you know, I'm gonna go off the rip and be like, I think Randy Savage is the only person that ever had a good Ultimate Warrior match. So Randy versus Ultimate Warrior.
That is a good match. Then I completely agree with you. Savage, fucking holy shit. I'm gonna say besides the obvious with Eddie beating Brock Lesnar, kind of like besides the obvious, or the Kurt Angle one where he retained that same year. Like I said, Halloween Havoc 97, man. Two of the greatest matches, I think, from WCW. One, Rey Mysterio beating Eddie for the Cruiserweight Championship. And also Randy Savage going against Diamond Dallas Page in a 19-minute Las Vegas sudden death match. I don't know exactly. It was a hardcore. It was a fucking hardcore match, but they put on a fucking amazing. That was probably, arguably, Randy Savage's one of his last best matches in his career, I would say, and one of the most studied matches with Eddie and Ray for modern wrestling. So yeah, I think those are all great matches, man. Two great wrestlers.
Oh man, it makes me really sad that we didn't get like Savage in other territories because he just happened to hit right when WWF was hitting. Like we didn't get Dusty and Terry and Dory and
we got Dusty, but it was WWF booked Dusty later on with Sapphire.
Like, could you imagine Randy Savage coming into Florida Championship Wrestling and challenging Dusty Rhodes? Could you imagine that?
Yeah.
It's just such a weird thing.
We never got, because one was on Raw and one was on SmackDown, we never got Eddie versus Shawn Michaels. Never.
Which is baffling. Maybe Eddie just didn't want to work with Shawn.
Still, man, that could have been a clinic. And yeah, that might be understandable.
Eddie's like, no, fuck that guy. Because wasn't Chris Benoit like that too? He was like, no, fuck that guy. There was a couple people that just didn't. I think like out of that crew,
Rob Van Dam. Rob Van Dam said, "Don't ever meet your idols," and fucking did the same thing with Shelton Benjamin. He did not enjoy his times with Shawn.
Well, like Jericho like slapped his wife or whatever.
Oh God, that was bad. Anyways, before we leave, real quick question. We don't have to go into the episode. I just want to say that after watching that Dark Side of the Ring, Dr. David Schultz is one of the biggest badasses that never fucking happened in wrestling. And I really would say that even though he was a heel, he kind of was Austin before Austin was Austin. And I'm mad that I could not find a match between him and Terry Funk on fucking YouTube or Google. But that guy's a badass and a badass bounty hunter. Like, he puts dog to shame.
So I had the privilege of, like I said, I saw him with a Q&A, and they put him and Eddie Mansfield together, which is, as everyone knows, was the Continental Lover, one of the rats, so to speak, of that 60-minute interview. And they had this conversation, like, the entire time, as crazy as it sounds, because he did slap the shit out of John Stossel, he was very nice, and it was like, yeah, I remember we used to wrestle tag. We did that tag team thing that one time. That was fun. And he was a super nice guy. He definitely talked about bounty hunting, carry people over the line, whatever. He slapped the shit out of John Stossel, like, hard. What, do you, like, bust his eardrum or something? Like,
oh no, dude! You know what's the funniest thing? Is on the show they're showing his he had, like, I guess a reality TV thing for him taking down people. And there's this one Hispanic gentleman that he's arresting, and he's like, "Oh, dude, you're Dr. Death. You slapped the shit out of Geraldo Rivera." And I just started laughing my ass off. So no, that wasn't Geraldo, but you got it.
He kind of tried to work it on the documentary. I don't know if you noticed that. He was like, I didn't hit him that hard. But when, like, I saw the Q&A, he was like, I slapped the shit out of him. So that's wrestling. That's wrestling, folks.
To you, Dr. Death.
Yeah, I mean, Dr. Death, great guy. I met him, super nice guy. He just doesn't like bullshit. And definitely encourage everyone to go listen to that Cornette interview where he's like, you can call me whatever you want, just don't call me fake. I'm not a fake person, is what he said. He's like, I'm not a fake person. You can call me whatever you want, just don't call me fake. And I think that would be anything in life, right? Like, you don't want to say something, you're a fake person at your job. So I understand what he means. And also, this entire season of Dark Side of the Ring is just like list shit on Vince McMahon, because also Vince was the one that was like, go out there and get heat.
Sorry, pal, we're going to have to fire you.
Yeah, when Schultz slapped the shit out of him, he's like, we didn't even get that much heat. But meanwhile, Hogan's like choking out the dude from Law and Order SVU. What's that guy's name?
Oh, I forgot, but yeah, I that whole thing. And then Hulk Hogan being like, yeah, dude, he slapped the shit out of fucking Mr. T in the back, caused a huge confrontation. I never did that. It's like, what happened? What really happened is what I want to know.
Belzer. I can't think of his last name. His first name is Belzer, or his last name is Belzer. And he goes on to do like a podcast, a bunch of interviews, actually, newspaper interviews, where he talks about Hogan bought his like European house, like his beach house, because he sued the shit out of WWE. Because Hogan just choked him out and dropped him on his head on live TV or tape TV or whatever it is. Yeah. Back in the day, talk shit, you get hit. Prime example, not even back in the day, Undertaker and Vader, where this guy, like, Taker was champion, and this guy kept pressing Taker to say wrestling was fake. He's like, so it's like a fix, right? And then like Vader's just like, what? It's great.
What'd you say?
Also, it's great.
Well, either way, I think this is a pretty damn long but awesome show. I'll probably try to go back and find out the time period in which we start talking about Savage and Eddie, just in case we have that time slotted, so you guys can know where the hell that's at. But overall, we talked about a lot of great wrestling, and I really enjoyed that conversation. I think that was fun. I think next week we might try to do the Hall of Fame again, or maybe something else, something different, to keep you guys, keep your minds off what's going on out there, and have fun with us. Chris, say goodbye to the good people and plug anything you want to plug.
Well, as always, this is an awesome show. Really, really enjoy it. You can hit me at Chris R. Patton on Twitter, Christopher.R.Patton on Facebook, Chris.R.Patton on Instagram, I want to say. Maybe. I don't really use that one. And then also, if you like hockey, listen to Skates Throats. It's good. And then there should be a Geek Vibes Live coming out with ya boy, me, on it, talking about some stuff that I normally don't talk about, at least on my shows. So it's very fun. So check that out.
I'm sure it's great fun. Well, there you go, guys. I hope you enjoyed the episode. All new listeners, thank you guys so much. We do this show twice a week. We usually have the shows up on Friday and then Sunday for both shows that we record on Thursday and Saturdays. So just keep on listening. We'll keep on covering wrestling. Go to geekvibesnation.com. There you'll find news articles for everything when it comes down to comics, comic book movies, just the movies, video games, wrestling. We cover an array of different topics. There you'll also find links to our Instagram, to our Facebook, to our Twitter at Geek Vibes Nation. You can find me on Twitter at DaneAlves. I think it's DaneAlves42. And then you can find me at DaneAlves on Facebook. If you guys want to join the conversation, join Geek Vibes Nation, find me there, and we can have some fun. And all of our past listeners, thank you guys so much for listening to us. Remember, we're on every audio platform out there. We're usually on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, SoundCloud. We're put on everything, and we love doing these shows for you guys. So keep on listening. Have a wonderful, wonderful day and a wonderful weekend. Peace out. And as of course, let the Geek Vibes be with you. Bye, everybody.